Welcome, everybody. My name is Sommer Joy Ramer. I am the co-host of this conversation, and I represent the Compassion Games as a nonprofit organization and the SINE Network, which stands for Synergized Impact Network Exchange. I am here really to spotlight a dear sister and a conversation amongst many sisters here in this Zoom room live with all of you. So we are grateful to start this conversation. Really, the topic is bridging the racial divide. And I just want to say it's, don't know how to do this right, but I just want to say that we are starting the conversation with our hearts open, and in SINE we SPRUTH, and SPRUTH stands for speaking truth with love and compassion. Don't know, it's a journey and a process. So one thing that I do want to say is really want to welcome all of you that are here in the Zoom room as this sacred space. Antoinette Rootsdawtah is really the spotlight sister of this conversation. I am honored. I met her in Ethiopia. Actually, I'm wearing a necklace from the place where I got to meet Antoinette and Pato in a ceremony of ceremonies for unity and peace with a very diverse, amazing group of people from all over the world in 2018. And just recently, I was with Antoinette again in, I would call a bit of the peace train, caravan of unity in Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. And I just, she is a dear friend. And in these times, I really felt called to have a conversation really highlighting our Black sisters and a conversation about the divide that is here. And so I just want to really welcome Antoinette and the conversation for, you know, the question of what can we do? How can we be better? And so Antoinette,
awesome.
Welcome.
What I'd like to do first, before we get started with anything, and I do want to do introductions of all the ladies who are sitting here on the panel, is I would like to start, we always do our Zooms that we do weekly with Pato, is we always start with prayer. And so I'd like to give a prayer first. And I know a lot of people might be thinking, what? Because I'm usually not the one who volunteers for such a thing. I always pass it on to somebody else. So I do want to start this with prayer so that way we could be centered in prayer and be centered in more divine wisdom and what our intentions are, what our agenda is, and what the truth that we want to be sharing. So, all right. All right, deep breath. Oh, it's gotten quiet. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, our Heavenly Mother. Thank you for bringing together this group of women to come together for truth, beauty, and goodness, to uncover and to discover what is dividing us as a nation and as a world. Help us to bring more truth and more light with more honesty. Help us to be able to bridge this divide. Help us to gather the strength that's needed to be able to have these honest conversations with our friends and our family. Help us, lead us into the direction. Let the Spirit of truth work through us. Let the Spirit of the Divine Mother flow through us. Let the Spirit of God guide us. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So for our viewers who are watching, I'm just going to go by how I'm going across the screen. So Summer has already introduced herself. There's Mimi in the corner with the green hair. So just give us a little bit of information about yourself and why you wanted to be here.
My name is Mimi, and I work with kids in our community. Mostly, I've been working with girls, particularly through roller sports and art since about 2006. I have a small following, a small voice around in my community, and I just want to be able to bridge the gap, bridge everybody here. I live in Long Beach, and as you know, our city's on fire.
Right. Thank you so much. All right, Ashley.
Hi. Gosh, what do I say? I'm a yoga teacher. I've been practicing, learning, teaching combined for over 10 years. And I grew up in a very, very multicultural environment in the East Bay of California near Richmond, born in Oakland. Went to college in San Francisco at the California Institute of Integral Studies, where I spent a year in a cohort dissecting things like white privilege and racism and social transformation, amongst other things. And I was very colorblind as a young woman. I was one of those people who was not aware that racism was still a problem until I started learning about it in college, and I'm glad that I started then, because you know, I feel like I got a sort of a leg up, so to speak. At least I could see it coming, and I've always been raised. I was raised to, you know, always serve my community and you know, love everyone. And I'm grateful to have been invited to this conversation, and I'm excited to learn, I'm excited to share, and hopefully spread wisdom and compassion and creativity, you know, with you ladies. So thank you for having me, and thank you for the invite, Antoinette.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, Dr. Quinlan Strong.
Good afternoon, ladies. My name is Dr. Quinlan Strong. I reside in Lake Elsinore, California. I love my town. Moved here in 1963. Where if you could close your eyes and if you could imagine dirt and more dirt and more dirt, that would be the place that I grew up in. These two individuals behind me are my mother and father. My father was born in 1912 and my mother was born in 1919. So they faced a lot of discrimination growing up. My sister and we were talking last night, and she told me the first time that she and my other sister were called a nigger. She was called this by a young little boy. And so she asked my mother, why is this kid calling us a nigger? And my mother had to explain this to my sister. And she still didn't understand. We talked about the incident the first time when a man drove next to my father and called him a nigger. And my sister was embarrassed because my dad didn't respond to this man. My dad had to tell her that it's okay, honey. We don't need to respond to that. My life has always been about teaching. You know, it has always been about the next generation. Our schools are just filled with okayness. Our kids need to understand that they are able to be astronauts and police officers, that they're better than just, not that being an athlete is not okay, but I want you to strive for being more than just an athlete. You know, I too was an athlete and was headed to a World Series softball. And at the last game, I completely severed my Achilles. So I knew for me that education needed to work really well. I'm here because I met this amazing woman the other day. It was just God placed us in the right place at the right time for the right reason. I'm here to listen, to be open-minded, and I'm too small to judge. But I want to be a motivator, a mentor to the young people who are moving up and who are going to be the next generation to take care of us. And I'm angry. Angry that it's taken till 2020 for us to sit at this table and talk about injustice. I'm angry.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Michelle Nini Monroe.
Hi, everyone. I've known Antoinette since 2006, when we were both hired to play in a reggae band that took us to Africa for 2 months. And we've been sisters ever since. And I'm also an activist. I've protested several times for various injustices, most recently war, and I haven't had a chance to protest for the injustice that's going on now for health reasons. You know, we have a global pandemic, so I stay home. But I wanted a way to contribute my voice to the cause for justice for everyone. And Antoinette has always been on that side, and she's one of my best friends. And when she invited me to do this, I was excited to have the opportunity to share whatever I can with whoever is listening.
Thank you, Nini. All right, Alexandra.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Loves. Thank you, Antoinette, for bringing me in. My job is to help people create the life they want, and to do that, they have to know who they are. So ultimately, I help people figure out who they are and to live that way. I'm a spiritual guide, counselor. I do spiritual work with people, coaching and mentorship. And my experience with race is interesting because I did not grow up in the United States. I didn't grow up with the identity of Black or African American. But when I moved to the States and started living here part-time, it was imposed on me in a way that was incredibly vile, and created it created many years, over a decade of sort of identity crisis. And so I got deeply into my self-study of identity and race and people and relationships, which is already what I was doing, but this sort of upped it. And so for me, something significant that's happened recently, I mean, I grew up internationally, I have friends from all over the world, but I also have, since I've lived in the United States for full-time about 15 years now, I've lived in very white places: North Andover, Massachusetts, Boulder, Colorado, Portland, Oregon. And so I've been surrounded by a lot of white people, and I have had a lot of frustration in sort of, where do I fit and how do I have conversations, and how do I even relate to these conversations, and why am I always being asked to pick a side, and all of those questions go on in my head. And this last week, I was doing a long event, which Antoinette was in, called Africa Week 2020. It was meant to bridge gaps, and it did bridge gaps between all walks of life of Africa and her diaspora. And the George Floyd things happened, the murder, the execution. And that's when I started drawing a line. It was the first time that I drew a line with my white friends and said, if you're not taking action, I don't judge what the action is, but if you're not taking action, we can't be friends. Not because of my emotions, but because of a courtesy to them. I can't not push you to do something at this point. And you might not be ready. And if you're not ready, you're not going to like being around me. And so I let go of a lot of people, and it was peaceful for a lot of people. They were happy to go. They didn't want to be part of what I stand for. And so that's where I sit now. I do Black mentorship program for white people who are ready, and have had overwhelming response of white people who are like, yes, I just need to sort these things out, and I'm afraid to ask, I'm afraid to get involved, I'm afraid. And ultimately at the bottom of all this is we have to do this together. I was saying to ladies the other day, I was saying to Antoinette, we're not trying to abolish each other, and we're not trying to create the divide where some of us go this way and some of us go that way. We have to do this together. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be messy and ugly. And we're going to have to also call on our wisdom and spirit, and yes, our ancestors, all of us. And that's now where I stand. And that's what these thoughts that I'm sharing with you now is what takes up a lot of my bandwidth and my time. It takes up all my bandwidth and my time. And I'm in purpose and passionate about it. And I'm thankful for that. And thank you, Sommer, for holding this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Alexandra. All right, Elizabeth.
Hi there. I'm Elizabeth Williams, and about 5 years ago, I started an organization called Awe Partners, and the purpose was to educate women on how to effectively navigate the social impact space. So focused on how to give, shop, and invest to make a difference in the world. And you know, as I look back, the thing that really got me started was I lived in a nice, wealthier, white neighborhood. In general, I mean, my children went to high school and with a diverse population, but in general, I was always around white individuals. And I found that I was never having conversations about topics that mattered to me. So I wondered why the individuals in my neighborhood, the church that I attended, there was never a discussion about domestic violence, about human trafficking, about issues that were impacting women, our sisters, close to home. I live in Chicago, close to home, as well as around the world. And so I felt like I wanted to lend my voice to the women's empowerment movement. And that's where I've been focusing my effort for the past 5 years. But you know, when the issue of race comes up, I focus very much on the statistics of women and where equality is not happening. But for the inequality for white women, it's always worse for women of color. And so when you look at the statistics, you see that the divide is greater there. And so when everything really, really did heat up recently, I realized that it's really important for me to spend even more time and focus on not only gender equality, but equality in all ways. And so when Sommer invited me to be part of this conversation, I just felt honored, and I'm thrilled to be here in support and to learn.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, so to give you a little bit of history about how this had started for me, I'm like Alexandra, because we do have, you know, the women sitting here, and there's a lot of other women who are not even here that are, you know, we also want to express that all Black people are not the same. We all have very, very diverse and different backgrounds. So we all didn't grow up the same way. We all didn't have the same type of parents or the same type of education or the same type of anything, but we've all experienced the same type of racism. all of us have that in common. I too grew up in the military, and I didn't experience racism as much growing up as a kid because we were living overseas, and we were in we were growing up overseas, but my father was definitely experiencing racism while he was an Air Force captain. He died as a captain. But for a long time, he was expressing to my mother, who was Taiwanese, the importance of why he made her make like black, red, gold, and green tams and scarves, you know, to give out to the rest of the servicemen, because they were underclassmen. They were like, we need to become officers. We needed to share our voices. He used to have videotapes, not videotapes, because this is way back in the day, because I was born in the 60s. Those reel-to-reel tapes where they had the government was actually watching the Ku Klux Klan. They were under surveillance. There's this information, this stuff has always been within the government for a very, very long time. And he was always speaking on these issues. And he was speaking on these issues from when he was in the military. But I was just a child. I didn't realize anything until I was 12 years old. I thought there was something going on in the schools when I was overseas, but I didn't think anything of it. You're just a child. But it wasn't until after he died in Texas and we got to Arkansas, and that was the first time I heard the word nigger. You know, that was the first time I was called the N-word. And in that time in the 80s in Arkansas, I guess the Clintons were governor or something like that. There was still segregation. It may not have been a law, but there was still segregation within the schools. So we're sitting there as children, you know, my brother and sister we could not even sit in the back of the bus. We couldn't even sit on the bus at all. They spat on us. They called us names. We couldn't, because the neighborhood that my mother lived in, she's Asian, she's Taiwanese, she's not living in a black neighborhood. She wants to live where she wants to live, you know, a place that she can, you know, design herself or whatever. She's not even thinking about what we're actually experiencing and going through. So as we're standing on the school bus, calling the N-word, and because we were educated overseas, we were also advanced than the other children. and they couldn't actually skip us a couple grades because it was so racist there. They're like, the only thing we can actually do is actually put you in advanced classes. That's the best we can actually do. So they didn't like us in their classes. We weren't in the Black classes. The Black students saw us and they said, oh, she thinks she's cute. She got that good hair. That, you know, that because my sister had very fine Indian hair. So no friends, no Black friends, no white friends. And we begged our mother. We said, we need to get the hell out of here because we can't take this. And she had no understanding of what it's like to sit there and have to raise Black children as she's growing up. So we left. So we wanted to go to California. I want to become a surfer girl. You know, I grew up in the 80s with all the rock music. I was, you know, I'm a big Rush fan. You know, rock and roll is my music and everything until I got to Virginia, went to a majority white school, went through the same issues and went to a majority Black school, got out of there, worked at my uncle's Chinese restaurant, and then I went to Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach, 1989 was the first time I was in a riot, a war between Black students and the police, the local police, the state police, and the National Guard. And when I say the National Guard, I'm talking about choppers. It was like Vietnam. Who would think that you would see choppers flying up and down a beach strip? You know, a lot of people didn't even realize because this was going on from way back then. This was going on from when I was born. I was born in the riot years of the 60s. To see this happening, and I'm in the street, they arrested like almost 600 people, Black students. There's students that can go to Florida for spring break and party. This was the Black student spring break for the weekend. You know, they're all HCSBSU students, you know, they got like the flyest swimsuits, the flyest cars, the flyest, you know, just looking bling going up and down, the music's happening, everybody's like, this is so good, spring break. Something happens, I'm not sure, I believe the story was that some kids, high school kids from another city came in and might have stole from one of the stores. Like some cheapy $10 t-shirts or whatever. It's not even that much. But what ended up happening was they sent in the police and they decided to clear the streets. Martial law, instant. And when they started the martial law, and when you look at the video, you'll just see hundreds of armed military coming down, going down the streets, one street, pulling people out of restaurants while they're eating, while they're drinking, while they're walking down the streets, while they're shopping, just grabbing every single Black person and clubbing them and beating them and blood and violence and everything. And it was crazy. And I was working down there at the time, and our store had gotten mashed up and got looted, and I was trying to get home. All I had to do was just bike and get down a few blocks to get home. Nobody was helping me. I saw my roommates. I had white roommates at the time. They were sitting there like, wow, dude, check this out. There's all this craziness going on. Oh my God, you know, and the police weren't bothering them. The only people who grabbed me to protect me from safety were Black people I didn't even know. So we hid in the hotels, we got in there. And that's when I first started hearing the stories, you know, about the kids who said they were being charged $500, $600 a night for rooms. Now, back in the late 80s, those rooms were like $25. That's how much they are. They saved up their hard-earned money to sit there and stay there that weekend. They tried to leave. The police turned them around and sent them back. So that whole street became one big prison. And that's why, you know, the way the news is showing it, because I saw CNN out there, I saw ABC News out there. They filmed everything, but they only put out the type of news that they wanted to show. So the story was, you know, look at those crazy thugs and animals and everything. They're dropping stuff with, you know, our horse died, you know, our horse pooped, whatever his name was, you know, had died, and everybody's all upset and everything. And it's like, they were locked up. They were throwing everything out the windows. It was full on riot. Nobody could go anywhere. Nobody could escape. Nobody can do anything. And after that incident, I said, I need to get the hell out of here. This is just too insane and too much, and I don't belong here. So I packed up. I went to Richmond, found some more Black people, joined a reggae band, and that's when I learned about my history, roots, and culture, why I got into reggae music, why I decided to read about Malcolm X, why I decided to read about the destruction of African civilization, why I decided to read about J. Rogers' From Man to Superman, Nature Knows No Color Line, and become educated on Black history that they never, ever, ever, ever taught us while we were in school. It's amazing. It's like, this is American history. This is not even like Black history. This is American history that all Americans should know and understand. I know about Chinese history. I know about Native American history. I could tell you the whole monarchy of the Tudors in the UK, but nobody knows anything about my own history, right, which is happening here. So I got educated with that, and it was really because of reggae music that was able to do that for me. After I left Virginia, I went to New York with just a backpack. There I go again in the riots of New York City in the 90s. You know, here we are having the Crown Heights riots, you know, happening between the Hasidic Jews and the Blacks over something that happened where 2 kids got run over, and on the street, the ambulance came and picked up the Jewish kid, right, and left the Black kid dying on the street. Yeah. That set the city on fire, pure riots. Next thing you know, somebody gets stabbed, then they blame it on an autistic little Black kid that doesn't know anything, and they just pin the blame on him. And over, the violence and the racial escalation is escalating to the point that they said that we need to have a civilian review complaint board, you know, with the police, that there's tensions and issues that's actually going on, and people didn't even realize. And one of the first brutality cases that I had heard about, there was always plenty more before then, was Amadou Diallo. Shot 52 times in his door because they came to the wrong house.
Yes.
His daughter was on the other side of that door. As he was laying there, when they did the autopsy, there was bullets on the bottom of his feet. While he was laying there dying and bleeding, they still pumped dozens of bullets into him. When I realized that, and everybody forgot too, when we were in Philadelphia, they bombed an entire Black neighborhood, the MOVE organization. And that's what made me realize, you know, who is Mumia Abu Jamal? They know who killed the officer. He went there to help the officer, and he got blamed for it because he was speaking about racial justice, about the Black Panthers. This is in the 80s. How do you bomb an entire neighborhood of Black men, women, and children unarmed? They did not fight back. They had their hands up. You know, they dropped bombs, and the Black people living in the neighborhood, they got it too. And on to this day, he's still sitting there on death row. And the weirdest thing is that when I started to get like awakened, because I didn't understand these things growing up as a child, and I was like really becoming aware, my own brother and sister aren't aware of what I'm feeling. It's like we had the same parents, but we went off in total different directions. I remember going to the north into Massachusetts, and I asked in the van, this white guy was driving and this other Black guy was sitting in the back of the seat. I said, have you read this book, Life on Death Row by Mumia Abu Jamal? I was like, look, you know, this is really crazy. You have to understand, you know, where he's coming from and what he's doing and what he's speaking about and how he's trying to speak up about police brutality, about racism and injustice and different things like that. The Black guy sitting in the back of the car, he's like, I don't want to hear. And the white guy kept asking me these questions. It's like, look, I ain't even talking to you. You know, I just kept putting my hand up. I was like, I'm not even talking. I'm trying to talk to my brother here. And I didn't even realize, it was like all this time, my brother didn't even want to listen to me. He was not even interested, and he didn't even care. So I was like, wow, the one kid that I asked to be interested, you know, was interested. So he came and later asked me about the book. When we did the show, I was playing with the meditations at the time. We did a concert, and I said, after we did a break, and it's a whole college, you know, full of white kids. And I said, listen, I want to, and I was shaking. I was like this, I want to talk about Mumia Abu Jamal and the injustice. And I want you to sign this petition, you know, whatever, and things like that, and educate yourself, whatever. And I went up there, and they were like, what the hell is she doing? And then so I left the papers there, and I walked off. And every single student in that college lined up to sign that petition. And that's why I stress again how Alexandra said, this is important and why we actually do need each other. We have to do this together because we can't do this by ourselves. The civil rights movement did not work just by ourselves. The only reason why they signed the civil rights into law was the minute those two white boys got killed. Everybody remembers their name, Goodman. You know, Black people were dying every single day for years for doing the same exact thing. But the minute some white life dies, then here comes the FBI, here comes the police, here comes the president, here comes everybody else saying that we have to do something. And that's crazy. It's like, why does it even have to even get to that point? You know? So this is how we're going to be starting our talk about what white supremacism is, how the other levels that actually are leading us up to that point are all still part of it, even today, because this is 60 years later. And if I was in a riot in 89 and my parents were in riots, you know, back in Birmingham, because they, you know, and it's actually called Bombingham, because they bombed that city to the ground so many times of bombing Black churches and killing innocent men, women, and children. So if my parents had to live through it, my grandparents had to live through it, my great-grandparents had to live through it, from slavery into sharecropping, why in 2020 are we still rioting and looting and being here at the same exact point to sit there and ask for the same thing? And like that woman had said before, we only ask for equality. If you know, you're lucky we're asking for equality and not revenge, you know, because anybody else would be in a revengeful state. So we're all sitting here angry, but we're angry because the only thing that we're asking for is actually equality, you know. So let me open up to talk about this white supremacism to Dr. Quinn, to Nini, to Alexandra, on, you know, why we want to start from there.
I would like to just quickly add, if I could have permission, in a conversation, I've been having this conversation a lot about the difference between supremacy and supremacism. And I had a friend give me a huge paradigm shift. And I asked her to write out, she's been writing out a long time, but I asked her to write out just like a statement about it. And is it okay if I put her statement, just for people who are interested, about the difference between supremacism and supremacy and why it matters? It's just about our languaging. Can I have the permission to put that in the chat?
Sure.
For this? Okay, I'm not going to speak more on it because I want to give room to somebody else, but I want to put that in there just so people can peruse it and start thinking about it.
Yeah, and I also just want to add, if you want to bring it in the comments of the live stream, there's a lot of...
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yes.
I think that we should start with perhaps a definition of what we believe white privilege is, because I think that there's a lot of confusion. People get really up in arms, some people, when they hear the terminology. And in an earlier conversation, I was saying that, and I've said this on more than one occasion, that white privilege doesn't mean that you haven't worked your ass off for everything that you have in your life. It means that your hard work is valued.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like in a nutshell, but you know, there's so many different aspects to it, but in a nutshell, it means that your hard work is valued. Everything you do is valued versus someone who is non-white. And so it doesn't mean that you have had a silver spoon in your mouth growing up, or that you have one now. It means that the color, by the paint job that you have, the color of your skin, you have, the silver spoon is available to you and in the closer reach.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you are non-white, that silver spoon is nearly unattainable, and you're constantly running up on the down escalator, so to speak.
Thank you, Nini.
Can you talk a little bit about, Nicole, when you talk value, can you go a little deeper with that? Valued.
Being valued, being able to know that your name is not going to be an obstacle when you're applying for a job nowadays on the internet. Your name can be a disqualifier if it sounds non-white.
Mm-hmm.
Being valued. when you walk into a store, is there a hawk eye on you? Can you shop in peace? Will you be acknowledged when you walk into the store? On many occasions, I can walk into a store, if it's not a corporate store, if it's just a mom and pop shop, boutique or whatever, and sometimes I may be acknowledged, but a lot of times I am not. And I'm met with, I'll say, disdain, even as I walk up to the counter to purchase something. I don't get a hello or may I help you or a hi, welcome. Is there anything I can help you find? This is on the majority of occasions. I'm actually surprised when someone does say something to me. I feel like, you can see me, So that's value. Some people, there have been phrases out there are so many phrases, but some I've heard from older generations, white person's money is greener, ice is colder, value. My money is just as green. However, I'm not treated as a valued customer when I walk into an establishment.
Value. Can I add to that maybe?
Yes, please.
Value says there's no question. Again, why is it that my life isn't valued when I walk by a car door, a white car? The door, I hear it, the door automatically gets locked. Value, I'm walking into a store, I see the woman clutch her purse. Value, I've lived, Elizabeth, in those neighborhoods and have been questioned about my value. How did I get here? Why are you driving that kind of car? That cost a lot of money. Having the police have their light as I put the key into my neighborhood, like yours, Elizabeth. I had no value. Why is it that I cannot go to the park at night, and I've been told, and put a hoodie over my head to stay warm, to walk my dog? There's no value in me being able to do that because I'm considered a suspect, or I'm looked upon as I shouldn't be in that neighborhood. So I love when you say value, because I believe that it is about the benefits. It is about the unspoken, hidden benefits that we don't all get to enjoy.
The values, and to spring off of that, because of the values, I always this has been one of the issues, like I said, why, we're losing relationship with our friends, because we haven't been able to openly talk about what white privilege actually is. It's on so many different levels. One of the levels, besides the falling in the store, it has to be one extreme or the other extreme. Either you're totally not being acknowledged, or you're totally, followed upon. I mean, you must have seen the hundreds of videos where people putting up, it's like, you see this person behind me? I'm like, she is all up in my business. I see them staring at me. I see them following around, pretending they're looking, and they're just assuming that we're going to steal, and everything. Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? Or, or the remarks of like, well, I don't know, like they're assuming that we can't afford being like in an expensive store. They're automatically making these assumptions. So they're either going to follow us around and make sure that we don't steal, or they just think that our green dollar is not valued the same dollar. But the privilege doesn't even end there with just the following of the stores. It's also with the housing, because how many of us have experienced housing discrimination? Everybody wants to sit there and say, it's like, well, because I don't have any money and I'm poor and I'm broke and I didn't own any slaves and whatever, I didn't have any money, but yet, Pato's rich, or think that he's rich, and he's gonna get like all this privilege and everything. I was like, do you know how many times that we're staying in a hotel and they think that he's some homeless person trying to steal something? I remember when we had to move our vehicle because it's a big vehicle, with a trailer, and he comes back in because he went out early in the morning and he had his pajamas on or coming, whatever. It's like, well, this is Laguna Beach. White people can wear their pajamas and their flip-flops and whatever they want to do in Laguna, but he goes out there and they're going to sit there. This is only for our customers, only for the people, our guests in the hotel. This is only for whatever. It's like, why would you assume that he, you don't even know him. You have no idea who he is or anything. And they just automatically start to give him, he calls it the nigger treatment, And a lot of times when we go into hotels to check into places all across the country, we're going to be standing there and they're either not going to acknowledge us, or they're going to give us the crappiest room at the end facing the garbage dump. And then we see them and they're like, oh, hello, Mr. So-and-so, and hello, whatever. And then, then when we go up there, they'll be like, and then until they acknowledge you. And then when they do acknowledge you, it's like, this is, and then because I'm a travel agent and I book through third party, whatever, they always want to question, they always want to question how I'm paying and how I'm doing this or how I'm doing that. When we went to look for a home, I said, I want to live in a mixed neighborhood. I don't want to live in an all Black neighborhood. I don't want to live in an all white neighborhood. I want to live where there's some diversity, where people can understand that we can all be together. But what ends up happening is that we try to look in places and I'm like, his credit is skyrocketing. It's stellar. He's probably got the most stellarest credit on the planet. But yet we know we're not going to get that call back. We're not going to get that welcome call or whatever or something, because we saw the looks of the neighborhood. We knew it was the same thing when I was in Brooklyn. The first time a Black family moved into that area of Brooklyn, which was predominantly Jewish and Italian, whoever sold them the house, they got pissed off. They said, you just brought the whole housing market down in this area. And when they did that, they all left and moved because
value.
In fact, exactly. And then it's like, oh, here we go again.
That, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a term for that, the socioeconomic term called white flight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So white flight happened. They all split and jumped and left. And then so all these other Black families started moving in, immigrants. The Caribbean started to move into that section of New York. That didn't make a lot of people happy. But I was like, oh, okay, now the neighborhood is kind of mixing up and everything, and this will be great. But when we try to live into other neighborhoods, we're denied being able to live into other neighborhoods. And when people don't understand that part of privilege, it's like they're never going to deny a white person the ability to live there other than based on their credit or their economics. We had the same credit. We had higher economics or higher credit, but we were totally denied because of the color of our skin. So that's how we ended up into Inglewood in Los Angeles. And that's how we ended up. And we were lucky to find this place in Lake Elsinore, because I was very nervous as well, too. I was like, are they going to rent to us? Are they going to rent to us? And I was scared and I was nervous. But when the last house that we looked at, and the guy, I was like, where are you from? And he said, he was Sam and he was Muslim. I was like, assalamu alaikum, my brother. Like we're so happy. It's like, we're in. It's like, he's not going to be looking at us differently. He's just going to he's only looking at my dollars. Is your credit good? And is your dollars good? I don't care about anything else. His agenda was not like what we're actually going to be doing to the neighborhood of a majority white neighborhood. So that was really different. The education system, which people don't understand, again, is because the schools in white neighborhoods that have 15 to 20 kids, they have the privilege of each having a textbook. They have the privilege of having higher paid teachers. They have the privilege of living in neighborhoods because of their zone. They put Black women in jail, in prison, for changing the zip code where they live, so their child can actually have a better education. Put them in prison because where she lives, and because we don't have the actual representation within the school board or within the city council or with our government local representatives, that in the Black neighborhoods, we have 50 kids in the school. We have unexperienced, untrained teachers. We have all these kids sharing certain types of textbooks. They did not get the same education, so they have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, get their education on their own just to be valued. Once they do that, so say for instance, you have the kid that got, the stellar education, and the other kid who had to work to double his education, and now he graduates from college. Now that he graduates from college, affirmative action is put into place to ensure the equity of Black people being able to be hired. Once they're hired, they're like, affirmative action is like, we have to hire a Black person. Everybody was fighting against it because it should be based on their merit and because of their experience and their skills and everything. Well, let me tell you something. In the technology in California, the tech programs, the highest amount of people of Black and Latino score the highest grades out of the colleges in the tech industry. They have the lowest amount of jobs in the tech industry out here in Cupertino. People do not want to admit this, but I've worked for law firms in New York City, corporations in New York City. I've noticed that every person in there, these Black educated men who have gotten their master's degree, their bachelor's degree, their doctorate's degree, the first job that they can get in is in the mailroom. When you're in these high-rise buildings, all the Black people are down there delivering our mail. They are more than qualified. They're very overqualified. And then all the people I see that's working up there were hired by their friends, or somebody they knew. It's because they were in the position. I'm not in a position to hire my friends or do anything else like that, but they're in the position to hire their friends, their family members, or whatever. It was not based on qualifications. It was not based on merit. It wasn't based on anything. They had to make them work all the way up while they gave other people positions in charge. Once we got back through the education and the housing, then we got onto justice, And when I say the Black men and women and children are justice, we are 3 times likelier to be killed by the police. We are high more sentencing, for most of the Black people in the population. Everybody thinks it's Black people committing all these crimes. That's why they're filling the prisons. It's like, no, they're sentenced at a higher rate. Black and white people smoke weed at the same rate. Black and white people do drugs at the same rate. Black and white people kill each other at the same rate against each other. Everything is done at the same. There's no higher of a mentality done for each other, even though economics plays a very large importance of it. But they have sentenced so many Black youth to prison for weed, for a spliff, for something else. When white people become drug addicts, they're like, oh, it's a disease. We need to, put them in rehab and help them overcome and stuff. It was never said that to the Black community. They just sentenced them for decades and decades, and that's why things are some changing actually in like Colorado and California, where they're like, we need to reverse these laws, because the ones who are still sitting in prison for harmless crimes other than harm to themselves, which was all they did was get high, and they're still sitting there in prison. So our prison system, and we call it the prison to pipeline, the pipeline to prison, and they didn't even understand the supremacism in the justice, because not only were they sentenced harder, there was an Indian woman in Boston who was sentenced to years because she tainted 10,000 cases of our Black youth. 10,000 cases, she fixed it herself and sent these innocent Black boys to prison.
I remember that case.
Exactly. And it's not the first time, and it won't be the last time until the system is actually kind of rooted out and it goes down there. And this is the thing that a lot of people are not understanding, what the benefits of white privilege is.
So can we say, Antoinette, that value means protected?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I bridge I would like to create a bridge here at this moment. And that is that white supremacism and white privilege screws all of us. We all got miseducated. We all are screwed by all of this. And that's something that I think is important for all of us to remember. We can come together on that. Not everybody wants to come to that table, because there's still a lot of, sometimes my understanding is that there's guilt around the phrase or the word or how people communicate it. But all of look at the divide it has created, these structures, these systems. Look at how what is created in this colony that we live in. We're all screwed because of this. It just so happens that we sit in different places in the power structure. And I also want to say, because I always have high interest in how our ancestors play a role, and how, where I'm standing, there's a lot of pride that can be had in Black people working with their ancestors. And of course, there's also things to clean up when we're talking about our ancestry and the things that happened before, and us connecting back into that wisdom and claiming, you know, if you will, your power and your divine rights, and maybe even cleaning up your family if that's what you want to do in your spiritual journey. But my friend Dima Mahmood, who's a partner of mine, an awesome, brilliant woman, said something really really awesome. And she said, you know, when it comes to white people and their ancestry, something I hear in sessions all the time and with white women that I work with is like, I don't want to know my ancestors. I don't want to accept this legacy because of the violence and the, you know, all the things that happened. And I just want to acknowledge that it's okay to be as angry at what was done in your name as maybe Black people are about what's happening right now. And it's also a testament to, we all have work. We all have things to correct. We all have work to do. So I want to build that bridge. I just wanted to put that insert that into this conversation.
So I'm gonna, one thing that I'm gonna bridge over to is, you know, is for my white sisters as well too, because I've only met Mimi. This is my first time seeing you. And Ashley, we're friends on Facebook, but this is my first time actually seeing you, as well as Elizabeth too. But I've made jokes. Anybody who's been around me will sit there and say, you know, I was like, I need you to use your privilege for me, you know, here. You know, it's like, I'm going to need, it's like, oh, we got to catch a cab in New York or whatever. We know those cabs will sit there and literally run over my foot, even though I've been standing out there trying to hail a cab and they're not going to pull over for me. And they'll run over my foot to pull over for the white people standing next to me, you know? So when I'm with white people, I'm like, look, I need you to help use your privilege and stand out there and hail the cab for me. You know, I need you to, you know, go over there. Or when we're driving, when we're touring, like the white guys in the band, I was like, I'm going to use my white token. We're going to go through this checkpoint, this border checkpoint or whatever, or something. I'm going to need you to drive, because if they see the dreadlock or they see the Black man or whatever, you look like a sheriff, you know, you look safe to them or something. And we're not going to be held up here for a very long time if you guys go up there and do that. And it's a weird thing, but it actually works. So if any of you ladies want to sit there and chime in about how white privilege has worked, or you've seen it or have experienced it yourself.
I have a question for Sommer, if that's okay. One of the things that you said earlier on when we began to initiate this discussion is that you've known Antoinette, and this has now just become a greater issue for you to talk to and be open about because you know her. So if you didn't know her, where would you be in your thoughts and emotions now?
Yeah, I mean, thank you.
Situation have affected you if Antoinette was completely out of this picture?
I do have other friends that are Black as well, and I, in some ways, for some reason, and I'm just gonna be totally honest.
Please reveal yourself.
I was having dreams, like reoccurring dreams about Antoinette and Pato last week. And when I have dreams, I feel like there's something that I need to like connect. And even before the last couple of weeks, I actually have been really feeling like something in my heart wanting to connect to Antoinette for actually a while, because we are in other circles together and I've been in other Zoom rooms with her. And maybe it was like about a month and a half ago, Antoinette, there was a Zoom room I was in with you, and I felt you dim and not very present. And I was like concerned about you. And I don't know if you remember this one, but you were playing music and you were in the background, and it was like really heavy on my heart. And for some reason, I didn't reach out to you, but I thought of it, and I was like, it was present, and I didn't reach out, but I was thinking about it a lot. But in some ways, I think it's part Antoinette and opening up this store has been the beginning of something in light of my privilege that I have for a lot of my life have had Black friends or colored friends. I have friends from all over the world, and rarely, I feel really bad for this, but rarely do I actually get interested about their racial injustice situations. Like I have felt like if I just act normal and as if I don't see the color, if I just we can find our common ground and not talk about, maybe that I think I've thought that for a long time, that was me being a good relative, was to not actually ask the stories and just find common ground and almost ignore that it's there. But when I think back, I mean, I grew up on an island. I live on this Whidbey Island. It's very white. I had there was one family in all of my community that were Black. It was like, and from that family, I had a very, very good friend. She was a cheerleader with me, Black sister. Her name's Sylvia Tornga. If you are out there, friend, I realized, and one of my best friends in college, I'm just thinking of different significant moments in time that I always had a very close, like, Black friend. And I've never asked, oh my God, like I've never had the conversation. And so something last week when I was driving in my car and I just felt that I needed to just reach out and like face to face. And Antoinette, I think, was one of the first people that I was like, okay. And before that, there was a protester in Seattle. I live near Seattle, Washington. So there was some pretty intense protests and riots. And a friend of a friend, a Black brother, friend of mine, I was noticing live streaming a lot.
Can I ask you something, Sommer? Is that uncomfortable for you to say Black?
Well, I just want to be as respectful and clear.
Yeah. I love your rawness. Just
Thank you.
I love your rawness.
I just want to be as clear and yeah.
Right on.
We talked about this the other day, the term Black guy, like just being able to say Black guy, to me, always felt really wrong.
Right.
And sounded negative.
Mm-hmm.
So I just talked about that the other day, being able to say Black person, or I just felt like it was wrong. I just felt like it was wrong.
And I guess for me, it's like, I love you guys being honest about this, because in order for change to occur, we have to be raw. We have to unmask and be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it is uncomfortable.
It is.
It's all really uncomfortable. And you know what? I want this more than anything right now.
What do you want?
To get uncomfortable. And I just want to see love. I want to see, I just, after hearing everything, I'm writing all these notes, you know, I want to learn. And I just feel so awful about my privilege, and that there even is that. It's like, yeah.
I think that oftentimes I find that I am the only Black friend amongst my white friends. Mm-hmm. I enjoy multicultural relationships and events and foods and music and so forth. And I find that I am uncomfortable because I am the only Black person at the party. Mm. And when I walk in, people look at me as though I'm lost, and that's very telling to me, because it says to me that this person, everyone else knows that this person doesn't have any Black friends. So what is this Black person doing there? And all of a sudden I'm a curiosity and oddity. And, you know, if I'm not walking in, introducing myself like a superstar, then there's this weird air and people are kind of coming up to me. So who do you know at the party? how long have you known so-and-so? I've even been asked at a couple of parties, what are you doing here?
Wow.
So, you know, it's like, wow, okay, you know, and it sometimes, you know, there've been occasions where I just got facetious with it, and you know, people ask me what I do. I'm a prostitute. I just went right for it, you know, just I'm tell them what they think I am, you know, and watch the reaction. And so I'm entertaining myself while I'm there, but I usually don't stay for very long after. I just, you know, come in and mess everything up and then walk away. But
and I don't know if you're like me, Nichelle. It's like if I walk into that room, that cloud, that white cloud, I'm in search of anyone that has a tan, anyone that has skin like mine. Search of that. I don't even need to know your name. There is a comfort level that comes with knowing that there is another Black person in that room.
right. There, you feel a level of safety, like
Right.
maybe they won't kill us both or whatever, you know. I think that it's important to foster relationships with people of different cultures. And I'm not going to say races because we're all of the human race. I don't care what they say out there, how many times they say it to us, but there's no Black race, there's no white race, no Asian race, Chinese race, Indian race. We're all one race, the human race. To me, another race is Klingon, you know, or dog, or, you know, Romulan, something intergalactic. That's another race. If your blood bleeds red and I can give you a blood transfusion, we're from the same race. If you can use my heart after I die, we are not from different races. We're different ethnicities. We have different cultures, but that's about it. But I think it's important to have real substantial relationships with people of different cultures, different ethnicities, and ask those questions. And if you know, you gain some, you bond when you're able to feel open enough to ask those difficult questions. I find that it's a lot of people who are white don't have those types of relationships for whatever reason. Maybe, you know, the subcategory is I'm afraid to say Black, you know, and Black has been given a bunch of negative connotations. And so you're afraid to say Black. Black is not a bad word. I'm a Black woman. I'm of African descent. I'm very proud of that. Most of us are. There are some that are not, but that's basically because of white supremacism making us feel ashamed of those things. And I didn't start out to be this person that I am right now, comfortable in my Blackness. I had to grow into this. I'm in my 50s now, and it has taken just about this long, sadly, to feel comfortable with my woolly, curly hair. I used to straighten the hell out of it because I wanted to fit in. I used to have, in high school, many of my friends were white because I wasn't accepted by my Black brothers and sisters because I didn't speak the way they did. I grew up in Mississippi for part of my formative years, and there are other dynamics afoot there. So I tried to get in where I would fit in, and I was more accepted amongst white people, but accepted to a point. I was still Black. And Antoinette talked about the segregation that was happening in the 80s at her high school. At my high school in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, at Hattiesburg High School, there was no prom. The prom, there was a Black prom and there was a white prom. And the white prom in the 1980s was at the very nice country club. That was where all the white students went for the prom. The Black prom was at the old broken down cultural community center for the Black students. I refused to go because all of my friends wouldn't be there. But that's something that was going on as late as the 80s, and it's still going on in certain areas. You know, you can walk into any place, any convenience store, and if you don't speak the way you're expected to speak or have the demeanor that you're expected to have, you know, broken down, perhaps there's some sort of brokenness that they're looking for in you, that gives them a reverence, that makes them feel like they're on top. And if you have too much eye contact and your words are too clear, then suddenly there's a little bit of a rear back and the question happens. You aren't from here, are you?
I've been asked that so many times.
Interesting. That is your first question. Then when I say where I'm from, they say that you're a long way from home. It's almost like you're watching the racism movie of the week. You know, everybody's seen this scene where you ain't from here, are you? You're a long way from home. And I'm just like, wow, is this a script that everybody's given here? You know, so.
I want to address again that value. Whenever I want to travel, I'm always mindful of, can I go there? Will I be safe there as a Black woman?
Right.
You know, and so again, I appreciate the fact that you have this value. I want you to appreciate the benefits that you have, because I don't have those. I don't. I didn't have that in school. I was so, you know, Ashley says she didn't learn about the African-American community until she got into college. What does that say about our school system?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I know women who have been so moved to get into the educational movement in our community and constantly are pushed aside. The statistics are there. The lack of movement within us growing and evolving as a human being, it's there. These kids have no clue about where they've come from, who they are, what they can become.
Well, the educational system does not, it does not value Black life as well. When Black history comes around, the one 28-day month, sometimes 29-day month that we get to be proud. And for me, every month is Black History Month, just like every month is White History Month. Every month can be all of these different cultures, you know, their month. But during Black History Month, you learned about, you know, maybe a handful of people, Martin Luther King. You don't learn about Malcolm X very much. I don't know. When I was growing up, we didn't. I was told by my sixth grade teacher when I was in sixth grade, I was living in Linwood, California, which is close to Watson, Compton. My sixth grade teacher was a white woman. She was a hippie, and she was all about inclusiveness, and she taught us about Malcolm X. But you learn about Crispus Attucks, Harriet Tubman,
the usual.
Yeah, the usual. There's just a
handful.
Go outside of that.
And it's usually about a paragraph for all of them together.
It's the version of the story, the version of the story that they want to tell.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly.
It's the version.
That is correct.
The oppressor that they want to tell, depending on what they create with everyone, not just us as Black women, but everyone.
Exactly. So when you have that very parochial view of what Black history is and what our contributions are to the world, not just to the United States, I didn't know until I heard a song called Black Man. I think that's the name of the song, by Stevie Wonder. We had the Songs in the Key of Life album when I was growing up, and it became, to me, it was my guide to music growing up. And I'm reading these lyrics, and he's enumerating all these different accomplishments of Black inventors throughout time. I didn't know that a Black man invented the signal light and the refrigerator, and
that's right.
Blood
the lawnmower. Don't forget the lawnmower.
Yeah, the lawnmower. You just go down, and these are all surprises, and you almost don't believe it because you're told that, you know, only white men do these things. We're just slaves. We're ex-slaves. So, you know, when the view is that small, then you grow up not knowing certain things, a bunch of things about yourself. And if you're lucky, you get you have people in your family that will teach you, or you get to learn about it yourself just through self-education. So,
Elizabeth, how is this? I mean, have you talk about where you are with all of this? I mean, you live in this valued community. What are you hearing? What are you having to deal with the dialogue?
So a lot of things come to mind. You know, the first one that I just want to say is, as I sit here and I look at all of you on the screen, and I think what's so fascinating to me, and I don't know what your belief is, but my belief is then when we leave, when we transition from this planet, we go back to spirit, color is not there, race is not there. You know, it is amazing to me how much pain has been caused by something that's really not real, in the sense of, you know, the bigger picture, that we're all spirit. We incarnate into this body in a color, a race, a culture, and so it's so sad to me that there has been so much pain caused by something that, what I believe is just, it's not real. It's real on this earth, but it's not real in the greater scheme of things. But the real that we deal with, you know, we talk about, like, have you had friends? And I have similarly, I've had women, Black women friends over the course of time, but it's very, very difficult to have numerous relationships because we are so segregated, and it seems like everywhere we are. I mean, our neighborhoods for the most part are not multicultural and not diverse. And so it's very difficult, even if I wanted to have, I would love if we lived in the same place and we could meet face to face and have lunch on a regular basis. And not just, you know, one of us, but a group of us. But it's very, very difficult to do that in everyday life. And it's unfortunate, because I think if we had more opportunities to do that, create true friendships with each other, I think so much of this we would come to understand each of our positions, how we've been raised, why we think like we do, what has happened to us, causes. There would be so much more understanding, and we could, as Antoinette said, you know, can you be my white privilege? I don't know how you said that, but it was so, you know, I'm going to use you. Like, we would do that. We would support each other and we would lift each other up. And I think that's where we're headed. But I think the question is, how do we do that? So how do we create these communities that truly have an interest? I could tell everyone here would have an interest in doing that. How do we create those communities so that we can come together more frequently, talk about these things, and talk about how we change things for the better together?
I want to acknowledge a little bit of history that you're talking about, and it's important for us to understand this, because I think the more we understand why things are the way they are, we can start to unravel them and also understand the language and the structures of those who want to keep us separated. And what you're talking about, that divide where it's like they're over there and I'm over here, like physically. I just want to bring that back to when the colonization of Africa, let's talk about West Africa, that area that is, and please correct me because I always leave out one country, I'm sorry, but Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, got one more in that little area, or it's a big area. All of that was like territory that everybody was milling and seething in. And when the colonists came, what they did was to take the power of unity away, was to take a family, put the sister over here, the brother over there, the mom over here, the dad over there, then make borders. And then further change names and all that stuff. And so this is something that's just reflected over and over and over again. How do we separate, isolate, make borders? It's also the same thing that psychopaths do to their prey. And we're living in a psychopathic system. And so I just want to acknowledge that you understand that system that keeps you separated. And it's important for us to understand that this is part of the program. We need to understand the program.
The program is separation.
Program. I just wanted to bring some history into that. That's all. I think
that was valuable, and I think that also the program is, you know, redlining. The reasons that we don't live together much of the time is redlining. Everybody's familiar with that term. Everyone knows the history of redlining.
Can you go ahead and explain that for those who might not?
I don't know. I would love to hear too.
Okay, well, back in the day, we'll say, this is a jumbled definition, but okay, let's say after World War II, there were a lot of GI Bills that were given to veterans to be able to buy a house. now you, like when you buy a house, they'll ask if you're a veteran and you can get a VA loan and things of that nature. A lot of that was denied to Black people, even though you've served in the Army, you're a veteran as well. You were not. There were exclusions that would fit Black people specifically, and so Black people, when a white man who came back from the war wanted to buy a home for his family, he was welcomed and was given all kinds of grants and loans and things of that nature to afford that right. For Black people, you were not given that at all. So that would put you in a certain socioeconomic strata, that part in a nutshell. And then to top it all off, there were lines drawn by banks around certain areas that were specifically African American, and those were considered lower income, and they would not lend to people in those areas as well. Dr. Strong, is there more that you can add to this?
You know what, I just want to add to it and just say, you've got it, but it was that systematic denial, right? Of our
right. Of the value.
Of the value. You got it.
So many, fast forward to 2020, this is more than most of our lifetimes. I would say all of us, either we were babies or not here when that was going on. Fast forward to 2020, and that still goes on. You still have white flight when people of color, non-white people move into certain neighborhoods. We're still, the establishment has made it so that Black is a bad word and Black skin is a bad thing, so that when we're seen in anywhere, we're not valued enough to be treated like human beings and be able to buy a home in the place where we want to. Like Antoinette was saying, you may have every qualification necessary to find a dwelling in the neighborhood of your choice, but perhaps you won't get it just because of the paint job you have, so to speak. So, that is a big divisive thing. Where you live is divisive. And also, a lot of people are just not understanding. When you go through a Black neighborhood and you see a lot of dilapidation, you think, well, look how they keep it around here. They don't even value themselves. They don't even like where they live. They treat it like trash. Well, a lot of times, because you're Black, you can't get that small business loan that you're entitled to because you're Black. But the system, they will allow another culture to move in and get a liquor license or whatever, and open a business in your neighborhood. So even in Black neighborhoods, we're not afforded the rights that we should have to open our own businesses and be an entrepreneur, or to, this is not saying that it's impossible to happen, but by and large, this is happening. And so that's why you have less of it happening in Black neighborhoods. You can't, either the credit rate is raised to sky high, that not even the average white person has this credit rating. But, perhaps that's, there are exclusionary tactics going on based upon color, and they'll be loosened based upon who's applying, oh, that's just for them, but you're okay, so there's that division. In non-white neighborhoods, we want to build up our neighborhoods. We want it to look beautiful and gorgeous. We want to have a lot of businesses going on, but we have to fight for everything, and fight 30 times harder than you would ever believe that someone would need to fight to have those unalienable rights. So it's unequal. We're looking for equal. Let's start there. That's a human right. We're all born human beings. However, certain human beings believe that they need to be at the top. There's a pyramid, and at the top of that pyramid, those people who make that system want there to be only one color of skin to be at the apex, near the apex. And anybody getting close to that gets snatched down. And it's not as if, Black people have not tried to be upwardly mobile. We've pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps on many occasions historically, times when we didn't even have boots to pull up, or don't have boot straps. There's no straps on our boots. Amazingly, we do have some magic, it seems, because we're able to, we're not magic, we're human beings, but we've been able to survive despite all of these knees on our necks. So, but it's difficult, and we want the knees off of our necks collectively. And that's why we're having this conversation today. And it's, what makes me mad is it took someone dying, another person dying. It took 8 minutes of torture for a bunch of people to watch. A man calling out to his mother, begging to breathe, for people to take notice. But that still wasn't enough. And we knew it, because those police officers would still be sitting at home eating Cheez-Its if there weren't people, thousands of people marching in the streets all over the world to shine a floodlight upon this, to shine, and even the marching wouldn't have been enough. They would still be at home eating Cheez-Its if there weren't people, even though this wasn't part of the movement, it just got tacked on. If people's businesses weren't being destroyed in the process of it, because money talks in the end. And
I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into that. So we only just started with phase one. Can
I just ask a question? I would love to hear.
I want to answer your question too that you had asked earlier, so I'm going to do that. So, you have another question?
I'm just curious. Do you think that it's different this time? Do you think that it's not going to just fade away? We're not going to forget this in a month. Is it different, and why?
All right. So let's go back to our format. With where we were going from white supremacy, white supremacism to white privilege. There's something I want to tack on to what Nini said and answer your first question before we move into the next segment, because we are going to start talking about what's happening now. But all of this is important. That's the reason why I'm sharing it this way, of how it actually led up to here and where do we go from here. So this is a process. We don't want to jump to C and D before going through B and C.
So we do have half an hour to do this.
We got all the time, whatever and stuff. So
you know what? This Zoom room is open for a lot longer than 2 hours if it needs to be.
But we're going to go through this, and that's the reason. So that was the other thing too. So because of summer, all right, let me put it into order, because I want to keep this in order.
Okay, go ahead.
Back to what you were saying with the redlining, and I had forgotten to mention this earlier when people didn't understand about white privilege, is that when slavery had ended, we were promised 40 acres and a mule. This is the reason why they even have that discussion about reparations. 40 acres and a mule. Lincoln got killed, that got shot to the ground. Those 40 acres and a mule were given to the European immigrants that came over in the land grab West, in the late 1800s.
And the reparations were paid to the slave owners for losing their slaves after we were freed.
Exactly.
They were paid.
So it was a double whammy, 2 whammies. One whammy that we did not get the 40 acres and a mule, and we still had to start all over from scratch, behind scratch again. Another reason why people had to go into sharecropping to begin with. This is a horrible thing. My family went into sharecropping. If people don't understand what sharecropping is,
that's slavery number 2.
Right. It's another form of slavery. The whole thing is like, okay, now you're free. Now you can get paid to work. But in order to be paid to work, you basically work in the farm to be able to live on the farm. That's it. So you're still making them all the money. This is the reason why my family got out of sharecropping and went into the barbershop business, because they wanted to be entrepreneurs and they wanted to control their own money. But it was horrible. They were like, I just want to live on the farm and be able to eat like I used to be able to eat, but now I'm free to actually do so. But it was like under the same conditions. So one, we should have gotten those 40 acres and a mule. 2, they end up giving it to somebody else who just got here. 3, as you saw in the UK and other places, they paid the slave owners millions of dollars for loss of property. That all that money that was supposed to help Black people start all over again, they gave it to the slave owners who already made millions of dollars back in those days. And now to this day is trillions of dollars. So all this old money that you actually see in this country is old slave money, you know, that we never got a part of. So while everybody is fighting against the reparations because they can't figure out how would you actually do it, there's talks of either you do it individually or talks of you do it with the Black community. But either way, something has to be done because all that money was just like, it was totally, you know, outrageous. I was totally against it. But moving on to Elizabeth's question, because she was like, she wants to move on and connect with more Black people. And when Nene said that she was like the only Black person in the party, you know, coming, you know, and I know what that's like. We have to initiate the conversations with people. You know, we're the one Black friend and they all got a bunch of friends of their own race or whatever or something. So we have to initiate the conversations and be the social person to sit there and be like, hi, my name is Antoinette and, you know, nice, I'm friends with so-and-so or whatever or something. So we need them to also step out of their shell, you know, because there's Black restaurants that you can go and frequent and eat at. There's Black churches that you can go and meet up with, and you can get that invite to the cookout, to the barbecue. We invite Black people out to our families all the time. They become part of the family. I remember somebody asking when we brought this girl, they're like, who the white girl? And I was like, oh yeah, she's what you call it, you know, and they're like, okay, you brought her. So and then she became part of the family. She was so happy because her family had disowned her for, you know, getting involved with the Black man and having interracial children. But now it's like, well, we're a family that accepts you. We're always going to accept people. People were always afraid to go into Black neighborhoods because they was afraid they're going to get jacked up. They're going to get jumped. They're going to do whatever because of their color of the skin. But I want to tell you that that's not going to happen. Go into a Black neighborhood. Go into a restaurant. Go into a shop. Start talking to people. Start getting to know people. Start to expand your friends list. You know, so that way the few that you know, it's like how my thing is. People think that when me and Nene are talking about our friends on our Facebook, majority of her friends are Black. My Black friends have majority friends who are Black, but my friends majority are white, you know? So it's like, let's kind of even that out a little bit more, but that's going to take like some sacrifice or some willingness or some action to actually get to know more Black people. You know, that's going to be a step that you guys would actually have to do on yourself. And that which leads into Summer, which is because she wanted to reach out to me. And she wanted to, all the frustration that I was having throughout the years was because I could not talk about the next segment that we're going to get into, white fragility, because I could not be open and honest with my own friends about what white fragility is. Because every time, and then, because she asked me, at least she came to me, because if normally I'm sitting there talking with my white friends and they're not listening because they want to pull on. They don't want to hear the word white, or they don't want to hear the words, dear white people, or white people do this or do that. Before we can even get into the conversation, it's just that the word white has already triggered them into some way thing of whatever issues that they're dealing with, which is leading into guilt or whatever. And I was like, I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm not trying to say that you own slaves. I didn't say that you are a part of whatever, but I'm asking you to recognize your white privilege and then be open and honest to be able to talk about it. And then to understand, to try to move the fragility away, to sit there and say, you know something, I do want to hear what you want to say. I do want to be open to listen to what you're saying about this, instead of telling me how I'm talking to you about what I'm saying, because that's the clapback that I've been getting from a lot of my friends. And that's why I feel like I appreciate Summer so much, because she already came to me openly and willingly. I didn't have to be like, you know, I can't say this around here. I can't say that around her. I can't be myself. I can't do whatever. You know, everything else that we say and do, and we're walking on these crazy eggshells. It's like, can I just say and mean what I say? And can you just sit down for a minute and hear what I'm saying before turning it around into your issue or your problem or your stuff. Because I feel a lot of times these conversations get turned around, and a lot of it is like, when I was young, I got beat up by some Black people, so I know what racism is. Or what about, other white people doing whatever, or deflecting, detracting from the conversation, turning the story about how much they love Black people, and I care about Black people, or how I worked hard for Black people. All this stuff, it's like, how did that conversation even get to be about you when we were talking about something that was on my mind? And so that's another thing that we're seeing a lot of people and issues talking about what white fragility is, which leads into white tears or white guilt, takes it into a whole nother section of how people respond and react to that. So I'm opening the floor to anybody's.
I would love to hear from Ashley, because I've not heard her voice yet about what's alive in her and everything. Just throwing that out there.
Hey, I was listening actively and kind of waiting for an invitation. There's a lot being said, and I like to listen. And that was really timely, because I've been discussing white fragility, white guilt, shame a lot online with people right now, white people and Black people. And I don't carry as much charge behind those words anymore, because I'm just like, I'm really frank about it these days. I'm just like, that Black person, that white person, I don't give a fuck, excuse my language, because really we just need to get down to the nuts and bolts, and everyone needs to be comfortable with it. And I think that I think the discomfort is a result of that segregation. Like you guys were saying earlier, we don't come together often enough. Like I said earlier, I'm super grateful I was raised in a very diverse neighborhood. Like, I just called up my Black girlfriend on Saturday and had a 2-hour conversation with her. I've known her since I was 12. She's one of my closest friends. Like, I can call her and talk to her about anything. We can talk about this whole thing, and we know we have no ill intent towards each other. There's no charge. And in fact, I can tell her about all my silly white privilege feelings, and she can just break it down for me and be like, yo, this is what's up. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. And I think that removing the separation by just naming it for what it is without identifying too heavily with what it is at the same time is one way of us overcoming the fear, the tension, the stress between the races, right? As Nichelle said earlier, we're all one human race, but between the paint jobs, that's one way of just clearing out the shame and clearing out the guilt and clearing out that charge, is just being like, hey, you're a human, you're this color, and that's not a big deal really in the bigger picture, but it is a big deal when we're talking about what's happening in the country right now. And we need to be able to talk about it in a way that doesn't create weight, because none of us really need to be carrying this weight. We need to be clearing the weight in order to grow, in order to expand, in order to process the traumas that we're all carrying around this, regardless of the origin. We get to create a new story. But in order to get to that place, we have to be able to drop those fears. And I was raised Catholic, so I'm very familiar with guilt. I don't practice. And as a yoga teacher, and specifically someone who works, I teach and practice Tantra yoga, which works with subtle energy. So I do a lot with my shadow, which holds guilt and shame, etc. And the light as well. So you might have heard this term light workers before. Then you've got shadow work as well. So I play and dance with all of that on a consistent basis. And what I've learned from that is that it all exists. Once you acknowledge it, you are in control of it. And once you're in control of it, you get to create your reality. And that is also something that I recognize I have the privilege to do in this society. I get to consciously, I'm still a woman and I still deal with sexism and all kinds of bullshit, but I get to consciously create my reality a lot more than maybe a Black woman would be able to, because she's facing forces that are consistently blockading her sovereignty. And that is sort of the core issue, is that everyone needs to be able to rise and be in themselves and be for themselves. And only from a place of empowerment can we truly harmoniously coexist with mutual respect and honor each other's diversity. I think diversity is a really beautiful thing. I have experienced tremendous amounts of healing and love from the Black community my entire life, on the dance floor, at my high school, you know, that phone call with my girlfriend, just hanging out with no particular agenda. It's the embodiment that any like Afrocentric culture, like the embodiment factor of the cultures themselves, like the dance and the feelings, those things are really powerful. And I find oftentimes white people are so much in their heads, like they're having such a cerebral experience, they're so mental that they forget to drop into the heart, they forget to drop into the soul. That's, anyway, I can keep talking about it forever, but those are the things that came up for me, and around shame and guilt, and that's how I see it. And at the same time, I also acknowledge that I'm not always the most sensitive speaker on the topic. In part, I think that's because I was raised, my mother did not raise me racist. We didn't even talk about it, hence the color blindness from a young age. But I feel like I'm also capable of receiving feedback and constructive criticism. And it's really important for me to listen and process and integrate. So.
It's interesting that you mentioned that your mom that you guys didn't talk about it in your family, and that in itself is a form of racism, because it renders a group of people invisible in a respect. Not talking about it is the safest, feels like the emotionally the safest option. However, not talking about it loses education about it and empathy within that education. And so, you know, you end up growing up not really knowing what to do, what to say, how to say it. Is it okay to say? Can I say Black? I'm not sure. I don't want to get, you know, stared down and evaporated by the Black eyes.
And I went through a process like that after I realized that racism actually still existed. I went through, like I said, I spent a year in cohort talking about social and racial justice, amongst other things. And I went through, I came out of that program with some depression that I had to deal with. And I didn't actually realize what I was carrying around for some time. But like, you know, and I have to give credit to my mom. She was disabled. She divorced my father. She had a lot of her own emotional things going on. So maybe she didn't have the emotional bandwidth and capacity to speak on things outside of what she was doing on her own.
Yeah, I don't think this even has to do with parents so much, because after a certain age, we're responsible for who we are and what we choose to take part in. So we can, you know, leave our parents out of a bunch of stuff, even, you know, outside of you know, racial issues or, you know, Black and white, because just who you are as a person, you become who you want to be, and you educate yourself on what interests you, what's important to you. And it doesn't matter what you've learned at home. There are some people that go totally against what they learned at home. Some people don't learn anything at home, so they have to totally reinvent themselves. So I think we can leave our parents out of this conversation, because it's really about what you think is important as an adult. What tapes you've heard in your head that you choose to turn off about yourself and about other people. And that's how we grow as adults generally, is, you know, even when you're not thinking about what color your skin is, who do I want to be? Who do I think I am? What was I told back in the day? You know, what was I how did I grow up? And what rings true for me now? And we all have a sense of that as adults now. But I want to absolve our parents of anything, you know, because we all choose our path. You know, I have this saying, that one of my late friends used to say, some stuff is just not cute after the age of 25, you know? So, you know, we choose who we're gonna be, how we're gonna be it, and how we're gonna go about that. So that way we take on the full responsibility for our countenance and how we function in this reality.
Mhm. One of the things too is as we're discussing white fragility into white guilt, because some people don't see it as necessarily as a form of racism, but when you think about it, when white fragility stops the conversation, that is a form of racism. You know, whether people want to agree with me or not, it stops the conversation.
It's a tactic.
Because if we're
conscious or unconscious.
Conscious or unconscious, you know, because if we're not actually having the conversation, that means that we're not working towards to heal and bridge the divide, because we never even got the chance to have the conversation. You
There's
know,
either defensive, what types of fragility do we have?
Defensiveness,
Mhm.
shutting down,
Denial.
white denial. Yeah, we never even left out that one. Being able to use the word white. You know, when they had the conversations of reconciliation in South Africa, and they had the conversations in Rwanda, when they had to come together and face each other, those were real conversations. The guy had to sit there and say, brother, me and you were friends as long as we lived, and you chopped off my leg. You know, you tried to kill me. And then, you know, they have to come face to face to sit there and be able to say that. If I need to come with my white counterpart here, now and today, you need to allow me to say what I need to say. Like, I need to be able to call you out. Do not make Black jokes. And then when I'm calling people out, you're making a joke about Black people. Oh, don't say that to Black people, yada, yada, or whatever. And then when they're all going on their defense of free speech and everybody else is supporting, and I'm like, you know something? Why am I sitting there talking to 20 people and none of y'all even heard a word I said? You weren't even listening. And you defended what you said because you just felt that it was just free right of speech or whatever. But you didn't listen to my right of speech because you didn't value my speech. You didn't value my feelings. They want to sit there and talk about being politically correct and things like that. But I'm like, I'm your friend. And I'm honestly trying to tell you how much damage you're actually doing when you sit there and say something like this, you know, to be honest, you know. And even Ashley, and that's the reason why I even invited you, because I was like, I love the willingness that you took, because I saw you getting beat up, girl.
Oh, I don't get beat up.
I know, I mean, but there it is again, you know.
I'm willing to fight for what I believe in, you know, even if it exposes my sensitivities and my weak points. I'm still willing to like stand in the fire. Like I will stand and I will just, people can set me on fire in public and that's okay. So.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I just love your openness and your willingness to sit there and take it. But what I sat there and said, they was beating you up because the same message was being reiterated over and over and over again about what was being said was not right. You had the right intentions. The intentions were totally pure and honest and lovable and stuff like that. But, you know, for other people who've been dealing with this for so long, and we know the subtleties, that racism is so subtle, and the subtlest thing of either not talking about it or how you do talk about it, it levels up as we're going to the white hoods, because everybody thinks that racism is Ku Klux Klan and people saying the N-word. It is so much bigger and deeper than that, that cannot be eradicated within a few comments, a few Zoom calls, and a few of everything. This is just going to take a total dismantling of all of our core beliefs, working together and trying to itch and get it out and everything. And that's the next thing, is because when we start talking about, you know, the guilt and the tears, which is another form, is because we're like, I never asked anybody to say the sorry on the t-shirts. I saw these crazy memes going around, and I'm telling you, my head was spinning. I saw these pictures of white people like in cuffs or whatever, and things around their neck, and they're all kneeling down, and they're all apologizing to the Black community and things like that. I'm like, huh? I was like, We never asked for that. And then some crazy propaganda video of this person, which I don't even think was a Black person, claiming to be BLM, telling, okay, it was fake. It was fake. But either way, the propaganda of spreading it around saying that we're demanding white people to get on their knees and apologize. We have never, ever asked for that. We've asked for like some recognition, and to sit there, it's like all the other countries are doing it. Canada is like apologizing and recognizing their error, what happened in Canada. It's recently starting to be happening in Australia. But in America, they still refuse to sit there and acknowledge the effects of racism and slavery, to make any formal or public statement, to go any type of reparations. And then even to have the conversation, they just kind of shut it down. And then to try to turn it on when we're just asking for equality, that we're asking people to get on their knees.
It's disingenuous. Even the photos, me as a, when I see all of these things, it's like, okay, this is a nice gesture to see people kneeling in the street and all that jazz, but I don't want apologies. We're past that. I don't want your kneeling. I don't want to, hey, be your friend or anything like that. What I want is what I'm owed as a human being on this planet that you usurp at every turn. My human rights. These are human, to me, it's not even civil rights. These are human rights, to not be afraid. I am afraid to walk around my own neighborhood because I don't live in a majority Black neighborhood. And I'm quite honestly afraid that someone's going to call the police on me. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to go and walk around a neighborhood that it's not my own without being in fear of the police being called on me. I want to be able to say what I want to say in any area without having the police called on me. A lot of times, white people will act as though they don't see color, or they don't know what racism is, or that they're not racist, but they know how to function within the system of white supremacism to get what they want. Just like that woman in Central Park who called the police on the Black man who was like, "Can you put your dog on the leash?"
That was completely disgusting, honestly.
That is what is going around the whole country. That's what's going around the entire country. At the drop of a hat, for being insubordinate, because people think, some white people think that they're up here and we're down here, and how dare you try to usurp my authority. I'm going to call the police on you because I know that you don't want that. Because I know that they will kill you. Because I know that even if I've done something wrong, you're going to jail a lot of the time. So, Black people want to not live in fear of having our rights taken away for doing the very same thing that white people are doing. If this is a country of laws, then let's act like it. If all lives matter, then let's act like it. People get offended, some people get offended, non-white people get offended, some of them, for hearing all lives matter, for hearing Black lives matter. And their retort, a popular retort by some people is all lives matter. Okay, yes, but Black lives obviously don't matter to you. Black lives are obviously not part of the all. Otherwise, you wouldn't be offended. Mm-hmm. We all know that it doesn't mean only Black lives matter. It's a statement of fact, Black lives matter. Mm-hmm. It doesn't deserve any sort of contradiction. But the type of person who says all lives matter to Black lives matter, they've, to me, just ripped their hood off. Mm-hmm. Because why is this a thing for you right now? Mm-hmm. And it's not just European people who I see espousing this, it's everyone who isn't Black. It can be someone from a Hispanic country, from a Latin country, Hispanic country. It can be from someone from Asia. Everyone who is not Black wants to align themselves with the dominating group, and that happens to be people of European descent. So we feel like it's us against the world. When I was at work, and a woman who's my boss's secretary was talking to me. She's from Switzerland, and she's of Arabic descent. But she talked about, why are you guys living through this? How can you stand the way things are here? Why don't you just leave? And what I didn't get a chance to say to her, well, I had the chance, but I decided not to, because sometimes it's like, well, there's no talking to this person. There's nowhere where we can go. Part of privilege is being able to move somewhere else, to another city or another state, and not have to worry about someone calling the police on you or burning a cross on your lawn. These are real things. This is not just movie of the week. This really happens. And you think it won't happen to you. You pray it won't happen to you. Why is such consternation? I should be able to move to Des Moines, Iowa, or somewhere in Montana, or to
Elizabeth's or Elizabeth's neighborhood.
Yeah, or Elizabeth's neighborhood, and not feel as though I'm being watched like a hawk, like somebody's going to do something to me. And that's a real fear. And this is all over the world. I've experienced it in other countries as well as here. There's nowhere to go. That you can't even go to the continent of Africa on many occasions, because it's being infiltrated by other people who are racist, other cultures who are racist. So this is what we want to stop the world over, not just in the United States, but on this entire planet. All of this has to stop. And paying lip service, marching around saying Black Lives Matter, but not really believing it in your heart and doing what it takes to fix the system, to dismantle this system and start anew, is what I want to see. I don't care how many knees you kneel on. I don't care how many sorries, how much you cry and shame. That doesn't mean anything to me. I'm cold now, and I'm tired of it, and I want change as a Black person in this world.
And
I want to think about white guilt here, and that is that okay? I think like three of us started talking at once.
Go for it. Go ahead.
So what are the subtle ways? Because we started talking about, I know there's people, I keep looking down at the comments, and I know there's people watching who want to know about some of the subtle ways, and something I had an experience that happened a lot in the last 2 weeks, but enough where I started being moved to explain how I view and what I really believe about racism. And that is the conversation that I have I don't have them anymore. I cut them off. But the conversation I was having was I started saying on Facebook, when I started drawing the line, and I have followers on my Facebook page, is if you're not taking action, we can't be friends right now. Like I said at the beginning of this panel, it's a courtesy to them. It's not that, I'm angry and whatever. You go your way, I'll go my way. But if you're coming this way, like, you have to know this about me, and I don't have time anymore for holding your hand or being small about this, right? And so I started communicating this quite a bit, maybe a couple times a day. I post a lot. I post a lot of help videos and stuff like that. And I was posting, hey, this is just your invitation. You can go. But if you're going to be friends with me, you have to be taking action. And so I got a lot of messages from a lot of people, and people who don't normally put effort into reaching out to me, and some people who I do talk to on a regular basis. And something happened with several people, and that was, I realized what my message to people was, which was when they contact me saying, are you okay? And of course, if you look at my videos, you can see that I'm okay. I'm in passion and purpose. I'm not emotional. I'm not angry or freaking out, although those are valid things to feel for people. that's not what I'm putting out there. I'm putting out like, look, we have to talk. This is what it is. Get on board. Here are your options, right? And I was experiencing a lot of people being like, hi, are you okay? What can I do? All this stuff. And I was like, why are people asking me what to do? Right? What can you do about the whole situation? What can you do about me? What, you know? And so I realized that a response that satisfied what they were asking, but also was in alignment with what I really would like people to do, is just to say, hey, I'm good. Thanks for reaching out. What I really need, what would make me feel better, what I think is important for all of us, is to take action.
Mhm.
That's what I was saying to people. Several times, the response was defensive and attacking.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Because they thought what I was saying was, because I'm asking you to take action means I'm assuming that you're not doing anything at all. And then coming back at me for whatever the guilt was, that with whatever guilt they were feeling from whatever they were seeing out in the stratosphere and Facebook and their forums and everything. It's so subtle. And anyone could look at that who has not experienced it over and over and over and over and over again for a lifetime, can look at that and say, oh, well, we all do that to each other. Yeah, we all do that to each other sometimes, but there are subtleties when it comes to race that you might not understand if you don't walk around in the skin.
Mhm.
It was directly tied into whatever their experience was and the facts we were talking about race, and that I was calling for something that they were not either not used to doing or not used to talking about or whatever, right? So it called me to start talking about, and I want to introduce this into a conversation because I think it bridges gaps for all, bridges all of us together. And that is just speaking from, that is that racism is this, look, when you talk about something for long enough, and when enough people believe in it, or enough people agree to it, consciously or not, it is something, it is a thing. And my knowing is that racism is literally the shadow side of a spirit. It is poisonous, it has barbs, it has knives, it is designed to be almost impossible to take down. It has momentum and density. It's been going on forever. It's been going on for hundreds of years. And so one thing I want everybody to maybe consider this perspective, and that is, even when you have two people who want to fight racism, or two people who want to get in the conversation about it, two people who are like, yes, Black Lives Matter, two people who are like, we got to hash this out, you still are dealing with poison.
Mhm.
Even if your intention is in the right place, you still are going to have to get dirt on your face when you're talking about this entity that is racism. And I believe that if we start understanding that we are dealing with the actual shadow side of a spirit, then we have the power of this knowledge, and it can be a part of how we shine light, and how we solve our structures, and how we have better conversations. Because again and again, when I come back to seeing where we're going, the ending of the old world, the birthing of the new world, we won't do it without spirit. We won't do it without ancestry. Whether you believe in that or not, you're either going to start visualizing it this way, or you will later.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to offer that in how it plays on white guilt and the conversations that we have, even with our intentions.
My issue that I've been having, because I'm telling you, the amount of times that I've been called racist, for everything that I've said here, as you guys have sat here with me, the amount of times of people who have called me a hateful racist just because I want to speak on these issues. I have not.
That's deflection. That's deflection, and it's also, what's the psychological term? Projection.
Projection.
Yeah.
I have not rioted. I've not looted. So it's like, so I can't riot. I can't loot. I can't kneel. You know, I can't talk about it. These are all the forms of white fragility, because it's like, I can't even talk about it. It's like the last thing that's actually left with me was to sit there and say, okay, can we at least talk about it? No. The only way you can talk about it is this way. The only way you can do it is this way and that way and that way. And the more that they do this to silence you and to bring your voice down, and even though their intentions may be, well, because they don't it's like they're also supporting that form of supremacism as well too. By not allowing me to share my voice, you're supporting in that same voice of supremacism. It's the same thing. I just have to be honest. You know, and that's where my frustration lies. My frustration does not lie in the pointy heads thing, because all of us can sit there and see the obvious, or you calling me the N-word or whatever.
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear. We see it. We know it.
That don't even bother me. It's like, oh, and the funny thing is
the
that
undercover stuff.
when you actually meet these guys, they're really not what they seem or appear to be. The people I'm afraid of are the white liberals, you know, with the fragility, that the ones who say, I'm fighting for you. I fought for civil rights. I've been doing everything in your power. You know, I support equality, whatever. But the minute you say something that's gonna, like, you know, hurt their feelings, and all of a sudden then they want to sit there and clamp down and narrate the conversation. It's like, how are you gonna do this if you're supposed to be with me? You're not my friend if you're not with me on this. Now you're against me, because the only thing that I'm fighting against is against inequality and oppression. And if we all can't get on board with that, then what are we actually doing here? We're not moving forward. We're stagnating, and we're just pushing the conversation aside in the background, and we're not actually going to move any forward with that. I saw you raising your hand, Ashley.
Can I say something? Yeah, just briefly.
Please. Yeah.
I've been in quite a few conversations, like I said, over the last week with people of all backgrounds, and my understanding is that the issue, one of the main issues, first I want to talk about liberals. I also want to talk about privilege in general. One of the main issues when speaking with someone who has white privilege is that privilege often comes with a certain sense of comfort that people don't want to step out of. And this stuff is uncomfortable. It's especially uncomfortable if you're ill-equipped to speak about it, you know, if you don't understand the nuances of it. And if it happens to be someone you consider a friend and you don't want to ruin the relationship, it can get, you feel like you're jeopardizing the relationship with someone who's very dear to you, you know, and that doesn't excuse it per se, but that just allows us to maybe see into the lens of privilege. And what I've been doing is sort of gently, and I don't expect people to do this, this is just something I've been doing, gently drawing people out of their comfort zone, gently saying, okay, but what about this? What about this? Little step by step by step by step by step. And then they're like, oh, actually, you know, I really appreciate that you said this and you said that. And liberals really tend to feel like they are saviors. You also have the issue of the savior complex. And Democrats love to play this. Democrats love to play
called the rescuer,
victim savior, right? Rescuer.
Yeah, they
exactly.
rescue.
So they love to create the victim, and then they love to, you know,
be the victor,
the savior, or that, yeah. And what that does again is it removes it. No one's talking about the concept of sovereignty and how important it is to not actually save anybody, but just create space for them to be themselves, to grow into their own power. There's a difference when it's, you know, you feel like you have to give or take or whatever, or just step back. Just step back for a moment and say, I hear you, and your voice has a place and a space, and it is completely valid. And I don't have to take it entirely personally, but I do need to recognize the historical context that we're all living under. And if I'm uncomfortable, that's mine to deal with. You know, I don't need to project that onto other people.
Thank you, Ashley. I want, if any of you guys want to comment on this as well too, I just want to clear the air, because we have this whole thing of Blexit. You know, a lot of us are awake and we're very aware of that. That doesn't mean that I'm a Republican and I'm gonna start being conservative and start going that way. I just recognize that there's the lesser of two evils. There's two parties that don't actually support my voice or our voice. At all. So we recognize, no, they don't speak for us, but they totally don't speak for us. We're really
so where are we?
Where are we? Exactly. Does anybody else want to go into that before I move on?
That's also a privilege.
Real quick, I was raised by a racist atheist. He was 6'9". He uses white height as an intimidation factor. And my mother was a closet Christian who taught me how to love people. My mom and grandma ran a licensed care board home, and I had a lot of different people in and out of my life from a very young age, from different cultures, different abilities. We took care of Mongoloid boys and girls. So I was aware of race from a very young age. And I feel like I've tried really hard to be a good person and be nice and learn. I live in Long Beach. We're a very mixed community. I have lots of Black friends. We do lots of things together. But I think one of the problems is I never really knew how bad it was, you know, that you didn't get greeted when you went into a store, you know, the little I saw a lot of people posting after the riots and looting that they felt like they were under attack. And I've been trying to remind myself that's how Black people feel every day. Every time they leave their house, every time they go on the freeway, whatever, run, stay in their house. So I try to remember that. And I work with kids. So I've always tried to keep my communication friendly and positive and uplifting. But I've learned that just being nice, like Summer was saying, you know, I'm trying to be nice, trying to be friendly, trying to put my best foot forward all the time isn't enough. And I'm trying to figure out how I can do more, like Alexandra was talking about, like if you don't show action, you know, I'm trying to figure out what that is. But I think there's just a group of horrible white people.
There are, but I posted something on my page yesterday that said, when Gil Scott-Heron said the revolution will not be televised, he meant the revolution of the mind. He doesn't mean what we're seeing on television right now. The revolution of the mind happened before that. Something in the mind happened before people took to the streets, whether it was individually and collectively. So what everyone can do is start to change their minds. And we have the equivalent of the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips. We're using it right now to communicate with each other. Educate yourself on the Black experience. There are tons of books out there. I'm not going to tell you which ones to choose. You need to go and dig for yourself in the book.
I will tell you. If you ask me, I will send you a whole long list. I will give you do that.
There are also videos, just throwing that out there. Tons of YouTube videos
out
there. Start with the history of various countries in Africa. There's a wonderful series by BBC Africa, hosted by Zainab Badawi. She's a woman from Somalia, raised in England. It's called African Civilizations. I'll try and find the link as we're talking and share it in the comments. And it's several parts series. Each episode is like 45 minutes long. Really interesting. She goes all over Africa and explores various different places and things. And you'll find out a lot about Africa, African countries and African people that you may not have known before. I know I am. I find it quite valuable just learning about my own ancestral history. I'm not sure which country I come from. I haven't done Ancestry.com. I feel some kind of way about giving people my DNA. But when we went to Nigeria, I had a feeling that I was from there because I kind of look like everybody who's there. But, you know, learning, start from one, history, because you're going to find out some things that you didn't know before. And that's going to lead you to something. You know how the YouTube rabbit hole goes. You're looking at one thing and you're like, oh, I want to know about that. And pretty soon you're clicking on a whole bunch of different things. And there'll be some charlatan stuff and there'll be some real stuff. And you're going to have to use your own discernment as to, you know, what you believe or what has validity. There are tons of books out there. You can start with autobiographies of historic figures. Choose one. There are tons. You can, you know, while you're watching the BBC African Civilizations documentary, it's more than 10 parts long. You may find, you know, some historical figure in there that you want. to read more about. Just be as hungry about that as you are other things.
If I may also just make a suggestion, the other day I watched 13th. I think it's either 13 or 13.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes,
And
that's a
that
good one.
is, yeah,
That's a really good one.
It's a very well executed film on the history of African Americans. So, you know, basically from times of slavery onward, and yeah, they do an
talks
I am
excellent,
not your
about the
Negro.
incarceration.
excellent job.
It talks more about our incarceration than it does about, I mean, there's some history from what I remember that I ended up being really angry after watching that. It's on Netflix because of the truth. The truth is, it's deep and it makes you want to cry. When we were in Africa, we were hanging out with Femi Kuti. He's an international star. And when we were hanging out backstage with him, he invited us back there. One of his friends was there, and he came in. He was a character. He was kind of funny, and he said, "Oh, Africa, it makes me want to cry." And we all busted out laughing, but we all were nodding. Yes, yes. There's that duality, and so you're going to go through a gamut of emotions, but allow them.
There's a comment.
Sorry.
There's a comment here. Okay, Summer, so you said you just watched Just Mercy last night, which is awesome because Amazon, with I'm going to just be honest, with their white guilt, have decided to make all these Black movies and documentaries
Available now, huh?
Available now, all of a sudden, because they want to be part of the thing. So again, we want to sit there and say, this is a great gesture, but this is not the end. You should have been doing this from the get-go. You should have been doing this all along this time. You want to show us this to shut us up, and then we're going to be happy, and then you're going to go back to charging us.
Thank you.
You're going to go back to charging us when this is over, and then it's not going to be available. But if you're going to be committed, this commitment cannot just start just with a few little whatchamacallit. You need to be committed all the way through.
It's lip service.
Right now, Amazon is playing the lip service of white guilt and showing us that you can watch movies like that for free. I'm seeing a comment here from Christian that he also has visually better than reading. So I'm going to tell you, Christian, this is to you, my brother. My daughter, because she, like I said, I never got this kind of education when I was growing up. When PBS did that series, Eyes on the Prize, it's a 10-part series. You will get so much education after watching that series, Eyes on the Prize, on the civil rights movement, from Emmett Till all the way up to the Black Panthers. This was back in the 80s. This was so educational. Why aren't school teachers spending time showing their students this? Why aren't parents and other people doing the same thing and teaching their kids? We're teaching our children. Are you teaching your children? Do they actually know anything about this? Zen education is also another valuable source. Yeah. You can go to Zen education.
And let's also go back to the basic of roots. And I must tell you, my father, again, was a student of Alex Haley's father. Mm-hmm. The history is rich. I mean, it's painful to watch. I can't stand any white person after I've watched these movies. I just can't. It hurts so much. But it is so necessary for you to see when those chains go on, when you go up on that block and you're being sold and ripped away from your family. All is that's necessary for you to see. Mm-hmm. I know for me, what I want is I want value. What I want is I don't want this discussion to be, okay, we're done, and then let's not deal with it anymore, because that's what has always happened. I love the fact that we've opened this up, but this is only a beginning of breathing, right? Mm-hmm. Only beginning to breathe. We are only beginning to start to breathe. And if we don't continue on with these kind of open Facebook discussions and inviting more participants and continuing to do this on a continual basis, we're going to do just like we always done.
Mm-hmm. Nothing.
No change will occur. And if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Mhm.
Great discussion. We were laughing last night, Michelle and I, and we were talking about, white people have this guilt. And so what they have a tendency to do is they'll go out and buy you a chicken meal and say, look at what I've done. Or they'll put $30 or $40 on the NAACP, bucket and say, but I've supported your cause.
Mhm.
For you just to support my cause now.
Mhm.
400 years of cause and nothing has changed. So if nothing has changed, nothing has changed. So I welcome that we value each other and we continue on with this interaction. I love the fact that Mimi can say, look, my dad was a total racist.
Mhm.
The fact that Ashley can say, you know what, I am learning how to be okay with saying Black. I love it. I love the fact that Summer can say it's uncomfortable. That Elizabeth can say, I live in a white neighborhood and I know what my value is. Those are discussions that need to continue until we get comfortable enough to be comfortable about doing something different and making change occur.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so I want to add to what you're saying, because I just threw an event with my friend Dima Mahmood, which was called Africa Week 2020. We did it last week. Antoinette was in that event and on a panel and performed. And we brought people together from all of Africa and her diaspora all over the world. Thousands of people saw this event. We went for 5 days, 24/7 online streaming. And for those of you who are interested, you can go to that page now. All the streams are there. They're not all the videos are cut up. But you can go there right now, and it's called Africa Week 2020 page. And if you have interest, register and we'll have your email, and then you can get access to the cut videos later. But the reason I'm saying this is that we had panels, we had workshops, we had performances. And we talked about everything from agriculture to entrepreneurialism to activism, community building, understanding race and heritage, understanding heritage and culture, all the hot topic subjects, all the subjects that have been going on for a long time. And for each of those panels, we asked people to either give people action steps or to take pledges. And as an organization, or to make pledges, excuse me, of what they're going to do. And as an organization, we keep in touch with all of these people and keep up with people about, so the pledge you made or the action steps that you asked people to take, have people been contacting you about it? Or how's your pledge going? And if it's going, let us know, and we'll let other people know in our community, which is huge now, that you can join this pledge. And so it's something that I know we're not at the end yet, but it's something that I'd love to plant the seed of for everybody here while we continue to talk, is maybe at the end of this, we can all say what our pledge is that makes sense for us individually.
I like that.
And maybe actually come back around and model, maybe a month from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever, and model like, okay, these 3, 6, 7, 8, there's 8 of us. These 8 women had this conversation and they made a pledge, and now we're coming back and we're going to talk about how that's been going.
Thank you, Alexandra. And so now what I'm doing now is, like, the ones who are dropping these awesome resources and links, which is great because the people who are watching Facebook Live are interested. It's really hard to copy these links within the chat from the Zoom. I suggest, if you're watching it from on the Facebook as well too, please copy them and drop them in the commentary section, because that way people can sit there and like check out these videos and stuff. We're going to move into the next section, which is going to be going into the closing out section of our thing, because we actually went over time, but because Summer was so gracious to sit there and say, we'll take as much time as we need. And I'm like, lock the doors. We're going to get in here and do whatever. So I want to finish this up by with a few videos that I want to share with the group, and this is going to be interesting as well too, because as we're sitting here with the 4 diverse women, the 8 diverse women, there's other women within our community as well too that have a diversity as well too. And this is moving us into the topic and conversation of why the marches and looting and protesting that is happening around the world, you know, and the voices that we're hearing, you're hearing the voices from us four, but there are many, many voices, and it's a very like colorful, you know, crowd of the Black community. So I'm going to share this with you, and we had to sit there and talk about whether we were going to show this video or not, you know, so just understand that the views that's being shown is not something that we're saying, listen to her, but listen to her because she's also one of our family. She's a relative, she's a sister, and we want you to hear her expression as well. Even though we all have different views of protest and expression and the way that we talk and the way that we walk and the way that we do everything, it's a big variety. So I'm going to share this one, and I'm going to show a couple others, and then we're going to be leading up to why our collaboration and how we move forward and stuff. And also because I need to hear also from my white sisters here as well too, you know, what you've been getting and understanding from this conversation as well. All right, so hold on to your seats because literally it's like that. Oh, this spinning. All right, let me move this. All right, I'm gonna hold on to your seats, okay? And I'm gonna minimize this too. All right, where is it? Oh wow, everybody's got me messages everywhere. Yeah, I know. My wall looks crazy with all the things.
So many tabs. I was looking with so many tabs open.
I'm a multitasker.
So
here we go.
I've been seeing a lot of things talking of the people making commentary. Interesting enough.
Oops. Oh, hold on a second. Oh wow. Hold on. What's going on here? Oops. All right, 1 second. I don't know why this is. All right, hold on a second.
I was hearing it fine. It sounded good when it started. It was clear.
Oh, I forgot to do the thing. All right, hold on. You're right. I forgot to do that thing that you told me to do. All right, I click share screen.
Oh, okay.
I go here, share. Oh, no, stop share. Thank you, Summer. You were so right. You said optimize.
Yes. Yes.
So anybody who's getting here's a Zoom tutorial, you're getting this at the same time. You share screen, make sure you click this bottom button.
Two little boxes, two little blue
boxes?
Yes, both of them. Yeah.
Both boxes. Optimize screen share for video clip and then share.
There you go.
Okay. What? Oh, okay. Hang on a second.
And then you want to, I believe, go to a desktop. There you go. That's good.
And now will be used. Okay. All right. So what happened? Wow, I'm in the wrong thing.
What happened?
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. It's the
Please stand by.
There it is.
There we go. All right. Go ahead and sing for us, Nini, while I sort this out.
Nice transition.
All right, here we go.
Sounds beautiful.
She's the one singing on that video and everything. All right, hold on. All right. All right, I'll go to this one first because I don't know what's going on with that. You know, sometimes things are assigned.
It's evil forces.
All right. All right, here we go. Check out this one.
This is a coordinated activity happening across this nation. And so we are in a state of emergency. Black people are dying in a state of emergency. We cannot look at this as an isolated incident. The reason why buildings are burning are not just for our brother George Floyd. They're burning down because people here in Minnesota are saying to people in New York, to people in California, to people in Memphis, to people all across this nation, enough is enough. And we are not responsible for the mental illness that has been inflicted upon our people by the American government, institutions, and those people who are in positions of power. I don't give a damn if they burn down Target, because Target should be on the streets with us, calling for the justice that our people deserve. Where was AutoZone at the time when Philando Castile was shot in a car, which is what they actually represent? Where were they? So if you are not coming to the people's defense, then don't challenge us when young people and other people who are frustrated and instigated by the people you pay. You are paying instigators to be among our people out there throwing rocks, breaking windows, and burning down buildings. And so young people are responding to that. They are enraged, and there's an easy way to stop it. Arrest the cops. Charge the cops. Charge all the cops. Not just some of them, not just here in Minneapolis. Charge them in every city across America where our people are being murdered. Charge them everywhere. That's the bottom line. Charge the cops. Do your job. Do what you say this country is supposed to be about, the land of the free for all. It has not been free for black people, and we are tired. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people. America looted the Native Americans when they first came here. So looting is what you do. We learned it from you. We learned violence from you. We learned violence from you. The violence was what we learned from you. So if you want us to do better, then damn it, you do better.
All right.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where we are right now. And actually, you know, because her video is really just perfect, because, you know, in our minds and how we're seeing and the way that we're even coming together, you know, for Dr. Strong and Alexandra and Nini and myself, it's like, trust me, we are just as angry as our little sisters. We have been this angry. We've been angry for a long time, but we have to sit there and contain ourselves with our anger and where it's coming from as far as our expression. So these are also our sisters as well too, you know, so they're expressing, you know, that's not necessarily what I would do. You're not gonna see me out there. I didn't even want to do the march last week, and the one tomorrow, whatever, because it's like, that's not my thing. I feel my efforts are best served in boycotts or other things like that and stuff, because I'm older and I've already been through it, and I know that they will target us. For anything that happens, they're going to be the ones looking at me, calling me the thug and calling me the animal. But is she wrong? Because the riots that have been happening for a long time, when white people are rioting, they're rioting over games. They're burning, mashing cars and looting and doing whatever. They don't call them animals and thugs. They're calling these people animals and thugs. I couldn't share the video, but you know, we're running out of time anyway. But you know, the girl was so angry. She's so angry and so hurtful, because she's like, they're just trying to get a little piece of what the rest of us actually have, you know?
You know what? It's interesting. Antoinette, I think people need to learn about body language, because what I saw from this girl was passion. I didn't see anger. I saw this passion, and I think sometimes our body language gets confused with a threat. Angry threat. But what I heard from this girl was passion.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
And she
that comes from having friends, real true friends, not just coworkers and acquaintances, but actually spending time with people of African descent and learning who we are as a culture. You would learn what our body language actually means. You would know when we're really angry. You would know when we're happy, when we're excited, when we're passionate about something. But when you are sitting on the outside and you're unfamiliar with what a culture is like, then you're going to misunderstand that body language.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add too that I've definitely experienced anger in the past. My experience of race and racism in this country is different because I didn't grow up here and because I didn't have a lifetime of conditioning of Black or African American and what that means here for a lot of people. But I will say now that I stand in complete peace about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is definitely difficult on my nervous system. And yes, there is like I live downtown Portland, so I do have that thing of like I can't walk outside, not necessarily because of not necessarily on a normal day, but just because for me right now, just because I don't know who's in the area trying to cause what. The protests are literally like right 2 blocks away. So I'm a little worried about that. But I stand in complete peace and passion and purpose about what's going on, because I hold for myself and for this world that we are building something better and that we're going to do this differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, and I will say over and over again, I work with my spirits and ancestors. All of this is happening because yes, because we're tired and because we want to change and because more white people are waking up to this. We're finding more unity, but also our ancestors are here and they're letting us know that their dream for us was not the vile crap that we've been living in. They are here without a shadow of a doubt, and they are walking with us. So for me, I feel like I'm in complete peace and I don't feel the anger, though I know the anger is completely valid. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for people to express in their anger and to take however long it takes. And I also want to acknowledge my privilege in that I've had the chance. I've been in a situation in which I could create for myself time and put resources into my own shadow work. Not everybody has that. It's something that I actively put my resources, time, energy. It's my life's work is digging into the dark spaces. I was not conditioned to have a stigma against that. Many Black communities have a stigma against working on those parts of themselves. That was a program. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion. I know we're about to end. I just wanted to add that.
What is anyone else thinking or feeling about what they saw in the video?
I love it.
Why do you love it, Mimi?
It was everything I'm not able to say or articulate myself. It's direct. It's, if you can't understand that, then there's a bigger problem, you know, because it's cut and dry. Really.
How do you feel? Sorry for interrupting you.
No,
the bigger problem and not understanding that, because there are a lot of people that don't understand that. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's a sick challenge called the George Floyd Challenge, where white people are kneeling on their friends' necks and taking photos and smiling. It's a big joke to them how this man was murdered. It's out there. There are adults as well as high school students doing this. It's a challenge, like you've seen, you know, the ice bucket challenge. This is one such thing. And how do you think that you can get across to people like that who would do such a thing? What would be your game plan to begin to reach the psyche of someone who thinks that that's okay, or someone who, well, let's start there, because that's the most extreme. That's racism incarnate. To them, those are the types of people who would attend a lynching and take photos and make postcards and take souvenirs of body parts, which is what used to happen with them. They, for some reason,
I think one good approach that people have been taking is removing Confederate statues and just, I mean, and this is obviously just one approach that's not going directly to their psyche, but in a roundabout way, it could symbolically represent the like that we will no longer tolerate that mentality in this country.
I think that's one tiny way. What's a big way?
Yeah.
I mean, these are your people. How can you talk to them?
I think there's a group of white people that you will not be able to reach.
We know that.
Plain and simple. There's going to be white people who are awful, horrible white people. And I think that's a bigger problem with the country in general, with the government, schooling, the way our school books are made. Like, there's a bigger corrupt problem with white people. So personally, what I'm trying to do is reach those on the edge, or those that are softer racist, or, you know, the ones that I know that I can get to. And I think white people listen to white people.
Especially the racist ones.
Yeah. But you know what? You're not going to be able to reach some of them. And I'm aiming for the kids, the new generation, the people that I know that I can affect, because, you know, I got kicked off Facebook today because I was talking violently about what I'd like to do to racist white women. I'm just so tired of seeing those videos. It's ridiculous. I could never imagine talking to anybody that way. White, black, brown, orange.
I think, if I may quickly, I think something that comes to me with the question in mind is such behavior that's so deeply embedded in a person, to the extent that they're willing to publish recreations of hate crimes and police brutality, or, like, you know, to recreate it and publish it online. Something that deep is also a cultural issue. And I think the best way that we can expect to address it is by changing the way these people learn, like changing their learning resources. And that's a multi-generation task. Obviously, by acting violently towards them, like, you can't fight fire with fire. I mean, you can.
Not in this instance, perhaps.
What's that?
Not in this instance, perhaps.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's yeah, with this kind of issue, I don't necessarily see that working. That would create retaliation. And
I think Facebook is a big issue. Facebook propagates a lot of.
It's a tool. It's a tool. Facebook is a tool, and it can definitely be used in a way that's harmful, for sure. So we have to be very mindful about the way that we do things, which is a big lesson that I learned last week, as Antoinette pointed out, and she's also supported me through. And, you know, yeah, that's really my answer to that, is that's a multi-generational problem that needs to be fixed, that will only be fixed via foundational changes, like changes in school textbooks and music and laws, you know, and the way that, yeah, and police behavior also, just what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. It's a big fish to fry.
I think
Elizabeth,
you to deal with those people.
Right.
What's that?
There is a.
I was just gonna. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so yes, it is multi-generational as far as like changing our the education that people get, but there is a direct way to deal with these people, and it's important for us to know, because sometimes we work with the people, sometimes they're in our family. We can't always shut the door on these people. And especially if you have people watching, especially if you're in a leadership or a teaching role, it's important to have the tool of being a revealer of truth. And I just posted in the Facebook and in our chat a video I just made on this, because this is the biggest thing that people come to the Black Mentor sessions for white people already with. It's they're talking to their families, and there's that group of people who will just stick and stay, right? And so the tool, I'll say it really quickly, but I suggest you go and look at the video I posted. And that is, to be a truth revealer, you have to show up without emotion, without ego, without judgment. And remember that you're talking to somebody who's stunted in their growth, who's steeped in the poison of racism, and you have to act, not patronize them as if they're patronize them like acting like they're a baby or something, but you have to treat them as if they're a small child. And your only job is to reveal truth. Your only job is to ask clarifying questions, and with no judgment in your voice or your face or in your body language or your voice or your emotions. And it's just to help them get to the seed of why they think the way they think. That's it. That's your only job. It's a long game. If you're dealing with somebody who's deeply into psychopathy, they might not really get anything out of it. But most people, it might not be today or tomorrow or next week, but next year, they'll never forget that conversation. They'll never forget the truth that you revealed. They can't, because all you were doing, you weren't approaching them with, when they come with you at the racism and they have all this energy and you approach them with this energy and this happens, they're kind of feeding off that. But if you approach them with peace, this is what we talk about peaceful warrior. When you come with them with peace and you reveal, look, the war, what we're in right now is a war. This is a full out war. We're in a psychological war. That's what's happening right now. And so we have to be peaceful warriors. And so when you come at them with this tool and you're revealing the truth, their heart will not be able to forget it, and they will eventually walk through the door. You have to believe that. Now, here's the best benefit of this tool, and that is the people who are watching will get so much more out of that conversation, and they will learn from your modeling of that conversation of how it'll open their hearts, and they'll also maybe start having that conversation as well. The other best part is you won't take as much of the grossness from that conversation with you later.
Yeah.
I posted a video of that, of explaining that.
So everybody is coming into there. So I'm going to be wrapping this up, and this is how I want to wrap this up. You know, we will do this again, you know, to continue on and everything. But I want to wrap this up as far as like, you know, how we're moving forward and how we actually start to move forward as well too. So I want to read you this quote, and I shared this on the radio interview that I did with Dr. Cruel on the goodness of the whole on her radio show. And this is coming from Martin Luther King, because as Ashley stated, it's like, we should do this and we shouldn't do that or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you know, we can tell people all sorts of things, but also at the same time, at the end of the day, it wasn't until those shoes was taken, that TV was taken, and that window was broken before they actually decided to charge those officers. We're looking at months, years before they actually make a movement. It's like, what will it take? I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to go and break anything or whatever, but this is a quote from Martin Luther King, because this has been going on since the 60s.
Since before that.
Yes, way before that.
But it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without, at the same time, condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is a language of the unheard. And what it is America has failed to hear, it has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the past 12 or 15 years. In our case, you know, decades. It has failed to hear the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. It has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo about justice and humanity. Now, this is like where we are now, and this is where I'm about to show you the next video now, is how did we end up in this protest? I was talking about that on the radio, and I swore up and down, you will never, ever see me in no protest or riot anywhere, because I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to blame me. They're going to come after me. They're going to bop me upside my head. They're going to arrest me, tase me, you know, kill me or whatever, or something. But we heard in our local community, in our city, that there was going to be a Black Lives Matter protest happening in the city of Lake Elsinore, where me and Dr. Quinn live. none of us know who put this on or anything. And as I'm an admin in the What's Up Lake Elsinore group, all I'm seeing is a lot of fear and a lot of division. The fear and the division was so strong that the people on Main Street, which is only 2 blocks, you know, boarded up all their windows, you know, with boards all over the place, because they were so scared that people either in the city or Antifa or BLM or outside agitators or white supremacists, it's like, who knows? You know, everybody's coming under a total different disguise, is going to come in there and mash up the town. And so I said, listen, calm down. First of all, there's only like 20, maybe 30 Black people who live here. And
Okay, 35. Give us some credit. Come on.
Okay, 35 Black people. I was like, one, there's about 35 of us. And I met most of these Black people. They retire. They ain't going anywhere. They ain't going to do nothing, you know. 2, this community, I've seen the way they respond, you know, to racial issues. They definitely not going to be out there marching for us. So who are these people? What's going on? I said, don't worry, relax. You know, I convinced Pato, I was like, let's go down there and just take a peekaboo, you know. So we're going to take a peekaboo, film it live for them. So that way all the business owners and everybody can like feel comfortable. Nothing's going to happen. We got out there and we saw some people speaking in the parking lot. And then Dr. Quinn, you know, she came out there and she spoke. And she was like, if you're thinking about bringing any bad mind, intentions, doing this, or you better get the hell. I mean, she just laid it on the line. And then I spoke after her. And they were like, okay, who's the leaders? And everybody started looking around. Who's the organizer? Nobody knew who the hell the organizer or the leader was. And then Dr. Quinn, they went to Dr. Quinn and asked her, can you lead us? And she came to me and she's like, girl, they just asked me to lead this. Can you help me? I was like, girl, we better do this. Because if we don't do this, who knows who's actually going to lead them into what we're actually going to do. And then it could go totally sideways, you know. And my husband was sitting there like checking people's signs to make sure. It's like, this is not the message that we want to send. And the whole thing is like, whoever's doing this in our name, why aren't you checking with the Black people who live here if you're going to protest on our behalf, and talk with us first before what you're going to do? So
Value.
Thank you. They didn't even value us, was going to go and do whatever, because they were supposedly valuing us, but they didn't even really value us. Anyway, so I'm going to flip this. And so this is the video that had turned out after we did our protest. The police contacted me. And then we heard during that same time, there was going to be another protest Tuesday. I'm like, who the hell are these people? What the hell is going on? There's all these protests starting in our city and we don't know anything about this. And then the lieutenant from the police station called me and he said, it's this kid here, you know, can I give him your number because they're actually looking for help. So this whole thing started. I did not want to do it. And I was seeing threats. I mean, when I say threats, it was threats that people want to open carry. They're like, if the government is not going to handle this, if the police are not going to handle this, we will handle this. They want to come down there and handle and protect their business, do whatever. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Now you're creating and instigating more violence and more destruction and more division and more whatever, when it's not even like that.
What within them thinks that they need to meet a Black gathering with weapons?
So the police officer was the one who called me, put me in touch with this kid, and he said he contacted Black Lives Matter. And then when they said, you know, the stuff, some of the things that they were saying didn't necessarily agree with him, you know. And before he even said that, we were sitting there saying, maybe we should change our message. You know, we still believe Black Lives Matter, but we're not officially part of that organization. And we're, yes? Yeah, I know. I'm trying to wrap it. Anyway, we're trying to send a different message here that we're standing up for justice and we're standing up for peace. So when we met with the lieutenant, we also met with the police captain, and we met with the mayor, and we met with the Chamber of Commerce. This was all done through the police from the lieutenant. He was like, he did not want to meet us with the batons. He did not want to meet us with the tear gas. He did not want to meet us like we're going to come out there and say something. And this is where the cooperation actually started to come. So we actually came together. They're like, we just want to protect everybody here. And this is actually what happened from last Wednesday. And then now that we met them just yesterday, they're actually marching with us. They're speaking with us, and they stand with us with injustice. And they're setting a precedence, not just in our city, but throughout our county. And even though the rest of the cities around us are on fire, they've decided to take a different approach, and I've decided to take that hand with them as well too. So I'll go ahead and show you this video that Summer's talking about. All right. All right, there we go. And I'm very proud of this. Pato did it together, and me and Nini, I wrote the music, and me and Nini are singing and stuff like that. So there we go.
What do we want?
Justice. Oops.
When do we...
Now. I did it again. I forgot to hit that thing. Hold on. Optimize. All right, both of them are there. Here we go.
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
We are here in solidarity because of the injustice that has been continually heaped upon people of color across the USA. We have a police force that is supposed to be protecting us and serving us, but instead they have been assassinating us constantly. We are here today not only because of the death of George Floyd, but because of the continual death of so many black women and small children who die every single day across America because policemen in uniforms are not doing their job properly. We need a change. We need a change. We need justice. That's right. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now.
Across the nation, it is clear that a revolution is taking place, and I pray it is for the better. It is up to our officers and politicians to steadily act on progress toward this solution. And it starts today with their voices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Each and every day, use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way? For a better day, stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way? For a brighter day.
So many times I heard, nigga, go home. Nigga, you don't need to be out here. Go back to where you belong. At an early age, I had guns pointed in my face because they figured that I did not belong there because of the color of my skin. My thing is that what we need to do is that we need to start standing up against the systemic part of white supremacy. That's where the main issue is. We need to start standing up against white supremacy. This is not just about George, but this is about everyone that came before George, and we pray that it doesn't happen for anyone that comes after George. It's about people of color. Black, brown, Puerto Rican, it doesn't matter. It's about people of color. Our lives do not matter until Black Lives Matter. And it is important that we take this energy and we turn it into action. I was almost murdered by police last year in my own community. I fit the description of another suspect, and I had 7 automatic rifles pointed at me in my neighborhood in front of the school I teach at. Students and family had to watch me get handcuffed and put up against a vehicle and be afraid for my life, and now I would be a face on my mom's t-shirt at a candlelight vigil.
Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way? For a better day. Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way? For a brighter day.
We love
equal lives as everybody else. It's also in the schools, it's in the housing, it's in the jobs, it's in the mentality, it's on Facebook, it's all around us. But when we actually see people coming together, then we actually know, all right, somebody actually is listening, and somebody does actually care.
How long must we live this way for a better day? Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way for a brighter day? Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way for a brighter day? Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way for a better day? Stand up strong each and every day. Use your voice, speak in a better way. How long must we live this way for a brighter day?
All right.
All right.
So that was it.
Great video.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to make sure that thing is paused somewhere. And
I want to know before you end this, what our pledges are for what we're going to do. What's the solutions that we're going to do before we walk out of here? I'll start.
I just want to say before even clarifying what the pledge is, I just want to say, I want to know also, in light of maybe what your pledge is, those of you beautiful Black women in the Zoom room here, I want to know your pledges, but I also want to know, what do you want to see us white women and those listening, what do you want to see our pledges to be? What's most useful?
Let's start with your pledges first, and then we'll tell you what we want.
I'll go first. I'm ready.
A buffet of ideas.
I'll tell you very clearly that I want a pledge of actual solution-based action that you can do and continue doing. But I also want you to consider long and hard about whether or not you're ready to, I want you to understand and start preparing yourself to commit to doing this work on yourself and in your community for a lifetime. It's going to take that. And I don't think, as much as I'd love to sit here and be like, your anti-racism work is a lifetime pledge now, it's something that I would love each and every one of you to sit maybe every Sunday for a month and ask yourself, am I willing to do anti-racist work for the rest of my life? And then make a decision. And I know it's a personal and sensitive thing. And so I will not ask you to answer me on that. What I'd love to do is come back and find out what your pledges are for now and the things that you want to do for now, action plans. But that would be my bigger thing for what I would like all white people to do.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I really, for me, I'm ready to do that. Sorry, I can't remember exactly all the words, but I'm ready to commit for the lifetime, because I think that's what, as women, we should be doing: nurturing, loving, caring, growing good things. But I pledge to continue to work with everybody in my community, Black and white, Asian, young, old, mostly police officers, hopefully, and use my white privilege to change this any way that I can. And listen, lots of listening. Is that good?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say my pledge. Sorry, my personal pledge is to talk on more panels like this, which is actually not my favorite thing to do. And I was urged to do it, and say yes to more. And so I'm always like, even before, right before, I was like, I don't know if I want to do it, but it's a very personal thing, but to speak on more panels about these issues.
I know for me, I pledged to, you know, my parents were quite different. My dad was one of the front runners, and so he was out always in the public eye. You know, while my mother was a gaffer, she built the stage and the foundation and allowed people to just utilize it. I'm in between that. I believe that my pledge is to teach, continue to motivate, and continue to be open and honest about where I am, how I feel, and then how I can be of service to you. Who's next?
Oh, sorry, did I interrupt someone?
Whoever wants to make their next pledge, I'll go. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say that I'm doing my pledge now, and I want to echo Alexandra. I was weary. I had my own reservations about doing this type of thing as well, but I see now that it can be of some use. I didn't know, and you know, Antoinette and we spoke about this before I did this. I was like, I don't know how I can help people. White people know how to behave. They know what they're supposed to do. You know, I don't know what I can tell them. It's all obvious, but it isn't as obvious. But one thing I will say that it's about morality. That's the bottom line. Even atheists, even though they don't believe in God, they know what morality is. Everyone, most of us know, unless you're a sociopath, you know right from wrong. I'd like to see white people should talk about dismantling white supremacism within their own groups. Need to talk about how that can be done, not the things that they don't think can happen, because as we've said, if you put your mind to it, it's going down. This system does not belong to Black people. We can preach about it until we're black in the face, and we have, but no one listens to us. As was stated here this evening, white people listen to white people. If you're not listening to us, if it takes, you know, burning down a bunch of towns in the United States to get you to listen, then you're not listening to us, because we've taken the knee, we've had panels, we've written books, we've straightened our hair, we've changed our clothes, we've gotten educations, we've done everything that we were told to do in order to be accepted in society, and none of that works. So this is your system to dismantle, and you're gonna have to get creative with how you do that. We can't tell you how to do it. This is the work that you have to do on yourselves and on each other. So talk about it more within your circles of friends. Talk about what the right thing, the moral thing is to do. And don't look at color. So don't look at color so much, look at humanity. What's the human thing to do? What would you want for yourselves? What's that famous quote that Jane Elliott said in that film clip? You know that it's not good for you. You know you don't want it for yourselves. Why are you so okay for other people to live that way? These are difficult questions. Another source would be to check out any of the studies that Jane Elliott has done. Check it out on YouTube, Dr. Jane Elliott. She has done a famous study where the blue-eyed study, where she put collars on people. She made people flip the script, and everyone with blue eyes had the plight of Black people. And everyone else with brown eyes suddenly had privilege in this game. And it was interesting to see how the people with blue eyes, or the people who were divided, that were being treated like Black people, how irate they became, how much of an outrage they were, how they thought that it wasn't fair, and the crying and the stomping out and, you know, leaving the study and all that, even though they all knew that it was a study. Those people who were being treated unfairly, who were being spoken to with no respect, who were not valued, watch their reaction. And then see how you can feel a relationship to that. I could go on. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Yet. Okay.
I wasn't really prepared to make a pledge. I didn't even think that far. I think my whole, I'm always open to doing the work, and I think that I consistently do my best, and I will always do my best to relate to all people, and specifically with more depth with people of color, to make sure that I keep my ears open and sharp, you know, and I think it's really important for me to get exposure to it on a regular basis. So if that means I need to watch a video, you know, or, you know, sit on talks, like just on a consistent basis, I'm fully willing and happy to do that. Yeah, but I just want to throw in there that I have to wake up in 5.5 hours. So I need to get off soon, and I don't want to. I don't want to be the person that leaves. I want to stay in the circle, but I'm not sure how much longer this is going to go. So.
We're ending with our pledges right now.
Okay, all right.
Dr. Strong, or should we hear from Elizabeth or Dr. Strong, whichever?
Well, I gave my pledges. I'm going to stay consistent with my desire for change, and I'm going to stay consistent with being of service to all people and reaching out and being willing to give you my history. I want to do more of these because I know I have something to say. I know that my voice does matter. So my pledge is to stay strong, stay up, and to continue to teach and educate.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Elizabeth.
I love that. And I would say similarly, you know, I have a platform that's focused on women's empowerment, and one of the key pillars is equality. And so I know that it's important for me to use my voice even more powerfully than I have. And I would just say to that, you know, for all the white privilege, you might be surprised to know that white women also struggle with speaking out and using our voice in a male-dominated world. So it is challenging for us as well, but I pledge to do that for the rest of my life. It's already been my commitment, and it will continue to be my commitment. But this does raise my awareness of speak even more so about not just women, but women of color in particular. So yeah, thank you for that awareness.
Thank you. And Summer.
I want to do lots of things, but one thing that I feel deeply called to kind of asking all of you, if you would be willing to come back into my Zoom room, and I want to have more of this happening in this Zoom room. So that's my pledge. And I'm wondering if a month out from today, we can come back together, and in some, maybe it's like a follow-up conversation, similar frame of what we're doing right now. But I mean, I as well, part of the platform that and privilege I have to be a part of, co-founder of a global network that I'm grateful to be a part of, but I would like to have more conversations like this that are also live streaming and out through our network. And I would like to do that alongside, I would like to invite you all back to this Zoom room and to do more of this, and to invite more people, I really like that it's women, something about this particular context that it's women, Black and white, and, you know, and other shades and cultures in the conversation using this particular part of the conversation about the issue with Black lives, like using that as the main core of the conversation. I think there's something really powerful about showing videos and then having like a dialogue after as well. There's so many resources. But yeah, that's something that I feel really called to, and just being really clear about that, and what Alexandra is asking us to like follow through, and that follow up aspect of like what we're saying now and what have we done. I'd love to, would be interested a month out what it looks like. What does the world look like? What do our communities look like? What's going on? How are we more?
I'm up for that.
Cool.
I would also like to be able to stay in touch with everybody here.
Yes.
If that's, you know, if you're got the time or whatever, just, I would like to be able to stay in touch.
You're out of Facebook jail now, right? So we can find you.
No, 2 more days.
Oh, 2 more days. Okay.
You can find me anyways, but.
Yeah. She's in a holding tank. She's not in jail. She's just in a holding tank right now.
Holding tank. Very different.
Oh, I've never been like kicked off Facebook for violence, for hate speech, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You'll be back.
We don't give that much
out there doing that. I salute you. I've been watching you. I've been standing by you. I've been seeing, because you know, before I've been talking about these issues for decades. Every time I brought up a police brutality matter, it's been cricket, 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 cricket. Minute I show some food, or me and Pato on an airplane, it's hundreds and hundreds of likes. Nobody ever wants to talk about it. Nobody ever wants to like it. Nobody ever wants to do anything. I have a whole list. So anybody who's looking for that resource list, because I told Pato, I was like, I can't give them too much. If you give them too much in one day, they will not be able to handle it. So I give them once every couple of days, but there's so much stuff that's going on and everything, but now everybody wants to talk about it. But anyway, to end this, I want to just say that in the video, it was a young girl who organized, after they had boarded up the windows, it was a young girl named Erica who had went to the business owners and asked if she could paint those images on that street on the boarded stuff. So they did that within one night and an afternoon. And I asked her, and I said, you sure those store owners don't mind you putting up those images, you know, BLM and take a knee and whatever? Because I know how the town feels about it. And she said they all agree. So
because their business won't be burned down if it has Black Lives Matter on it.
Yes, there's an underlying reason.
Sure. Or maybe some of them were like, I can make that step towards.
That's right. Healing.
Maybe that.
That's right.
I did tell my friend, you know, in Huntington Beach where they were having issues or problem. And I did tell him, and he might not have been listening as well. I said, dude, don't close, open up, put a sign out there, BLM, Black Lives Matter, and whatever. And you will get some serious black up and support to sit there and support for you. But even though I told him, he was still hesitant because he could not say Black Lives Matter. And he was just so fearful of what was going on. But he ended up opening. And when he opened and everybody was there, they didn't have any issues or problem. That's the whole thing. It's like, dude, you don't have to totally agree. But if we can come to some type of middle, there's not going to be any kind of problems or any kinds of issues. So my pledge too, and to answer Elizabeth's question as well too, because this is with the women's marches and the women's movements and the women's everything. We've seen this so many times because we've been in it. We've been in it and supporting it. We've been in it so much that we've been supporting Native Americans. We've been supporting Indigenous. We've been supporting LGBT. We've been in it and supported every oppressive group out there. But when it came time to sit there and support Black Lives Matter or to support us, where are they? Where are our white women in 1 million or 100,000 or whatever? Because if you know how disgusting it is, you know, with the sexism, you know, as a woman that you've been treated in the workplace, in the home, in society, sociologically and philosophically, that you know what that's been like, and you can understand that, then we need you there with us because you will add to our voices. because our voices are so small. But if we had those hundreds of thousands and millions of women who are asking for that, if they came on board with us asking for the same thing, imagine how much the world will change.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm totally down. Next month, let's see where we're going with this. Where are we going to do with this? Anybody who wants any resources, information, links to books, links to films, links to information.
We could start like a book club or a video
You know what? That
club
would be
or something.
really cool as a book
And
club.
if you want some Black friends, if anybody wants some Black friends to say, I need some more Black friends, just hit me up. I will send you dozens of them. Trust me, they will be glad to be your friend. This is going to be great. All right.
And I literally mentor white people. I'm a Black mentor for white people who are ready. I have a whole program for that. You can find that on my website, Alexandra Loves.
I'd like to try that.
People are looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to try that, Alexandra. I'd like
Okay,
to.
awesome.
I'm not sure where you're at, but.
Well, I'll
send your web link.
Alexandra, will you put information in the live stream link of all the places we can find you? Because I was already trying to friend you. I was hoping we could be friends.
Yeah.
I'd like to be on the action side of things. Is that?
Yes.
And I also friended a lot of you already, so hopefully you'll be okay with us being friends.
Alexandra, when you spoke, I felt like you were speaking directly to me. Your eyes just. I felt like you were looking right into my eyes, and so I hope you speak in public more because you
absolutely
have a very eloquent voice.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So will one of our ladies want to give our closing prayer to end this?
I'm not equipped for that.
Okay, I'll do my best.
All right then.
Let's go to our quiet space for a moment. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out any negativity. Positive light is all around us. Mother, Father God, we are grateful for new friendships and understanding and open hearts. We pray that open minds come with this as well, and also we pray that positive message and involvement can spread to other people. We hope that this is more infectious than COVID-19. We pray for just understanding and involvement, recognition of humanity, recognition of what is right and what is wrong, recognition of your light. That's about all I can say right now. All of us can add to that silently or openly, it doesn't matter. We've come with an open spirit to share with each other, and we want to continue the sharing spirit, and we want this positivity to flourish into the next month and beyond. We want the strength that you've imbued in us to be spread to others as we spread the message to strangers, if need be, when it is organic to do so, to our loved ones, to open their hearts and open their minds, to join spirits with our ancestors so that we know the right way to go and the right things to say in the time that we have to say it. All this we ask in Jesus' name. That is how I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Nice to meet everyone. I hope we can do this again soon.
I'll link everybody together, so we're all going to be friends now.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you, ladies. Have a good night.
Bye-bye now. Have a great day tomorrow.
Thank you.
I'll keep you guys posted on our march tomorrow.
Everyone that was live with us too, I just want to say too, part of power of the sharing. Share this live stream.
Yes.
Share it.
Thank you.
you for being a
All
part.
right.